These are just two blokes talking real stuff about what really needs to happen to have more external world success. I could speak for 5 days about this stuff because I think the way we are taught to learn skills is grossly flawed.
Why do you think you got good at it so easy?
It's a great question, and I could answer it by saying...
Big Mr. Geoff Jowett, 40 mil a year from BodyTrim, 100 mil over a 5-year window that you created from that. Mate, you had the Ferraris, you had the Maseratis, you had the big house, you've had Rig of the Year multiple times, 2003 Australian PT of the Year as well. What are your biggest learnings and takeaways from the whole journey if you look at the whole thing?
It is impossible to scale anything if you don't get good at practicing overriding your natural default if you want a different result. And that's the practice, the work that you did years ago. That's gold. And you do that and you start to say, hang on, this is a whole other way. I don't have to be 1,000,000 miles an hour and I can still get as much done. I don't have to blow up.
You achieve something to an extremely high level, but then it's always like, well, I've achieved this, I've owned this, I'm now dominating this. Man, you're on every channel every morning, you know. How do you keep that in check?
The thing that makes us break through and achieve huge commercial success can also be...
What's the most consistent character trait you've witnessed in all the top 1% people you've ever met?
Just that relentless...
G'day listeners and welcome to another Top 1% podcast, the show that dives deep and peers into the minds of the world's highest performers in both business, athletes and entrepreneurs. And today I'm super excited. When I came up with the idea for this podcast, this man was actually at the very center of a lot of my reasoning behind wanting to do it. He peeled back many layers on myself and I got a pretty good insight into this man and what he'd done and what he'd been through as well. It's a very inspiring story. There are some ridiculously high highs combined with some ridiculously low lows as well that the man's built himself back up and around from as well. So on that note, I'm absolutely privileged to welcome into the studio big Mr. Geoff Jowett, mate. Welcome to the show.
Sammy, thanks for having me, mate. Not as big as you, big as a house, hard as a cat's head. You look amazing.
Mate, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. Mate, we've known each other for many years now. And I've always been super inspired by your story.
Thank you.
And mate, I guess I've heard a lot of it, but there's a lot that I've always kind of wanted to ask you about or even dive deeper or whatever as well. So, man, I'm really excited for today's episode. So, mate, appreciate you joining us.
Likewise, and looking forward to your probing and see what we find. Probe away.
Mate, let's do it. We'll
metaphorically.
No, mate, we're doing both physical and metaphorically today.
Giddy up.
Sorry about that one, mate.
On a lucky day.
Mate, I love it, man. You've got an impressive rap sheet. I'm gonna run through this just to give the listeners a bit of an overview of the man that we're obviously interviewing today and what you've done to date. A lot of people out there might know what Vision Personal Training is. Mate, you were the founder with your co-partner back in the day as well.
Yep, with Andrew back in, when did we start that? Bloody hell. Time flies. 1999. When were you born?
1990.
You giddy up.
You were 9.
Primary school. Old enough to join at that point. Yeah.
Couldn't
99. That's right. I was like 21 or something. And we started in the local gym.
Yeah.
Turns out I was pretty handy with marketing and we got lots and lots of clients. Andrew was very good at systems and processes. So we had consistency and it grew exponentially over time. And true to my younger self, I got bored pretty quickly, and after about 5 years, I'd had enough and started franchising. But then I went off and did other businesses and whatnot, which I'm sure we'll pull apart today. But yeah, that was the first sort of business I did out of uni.
Yeah, perfect. Good. Mate, we'll dive into that in a second. If I run through, I guess, the remainder of that's just a starting point, right? And especially, it shows the entrepreneurial spirit. I think the fact that you jumped into that and started that at 21, mate, that's crazy, right? And now we look at it now, it's a 70 plus location franchise business. Like, it's a monster. Man, BodyTrim, which is obviously the pinnacle of what you sort of built at the time as well. Man, you got that in its biggest year, 40 mil a year from BodyTrim. If you don't mind me saying, as well, 100 mil over a 5-year window that you created from that. Mate, you had the Ferraris, you had the Maseratis, you had the big house, you've had Rig of the Year multiple times. You still look pretty bloody good for 48 years old, mate.
38 for life.
Yeah, sorry, 38.
Just for men on the beard. Who better than Botox, folks? All 7 woolies. Sorry, carry on.
38, sorry about that, mate, 38. And mate, also 2003 Australian PT of the Year as well.
Done his homework, this bloke.
Mate, hey, we're going deep. I told you, we're going to be probing.
Someone's found something there way back.
Mate, we're probing, we're going deep. But man, I think like what I really want to do, what I love doing these episodes is always like drilling back to the very start. And what I find so often even when I reflect on my own journey, but then when I sit in the chair and whether it's people that have done really well at property investing or business ownership or, that entrepreneurial thing, like with you and everything you build over that time, I love to understand, and I hope this isn't too personal, but like drilling back even as a kid and the family and the upbringing, because I just see so often that translating into people like yourself and myself and what we build ourselves into over time as well. So, mate, I'd love to dive back into that. Like, what was the upbringing like? What was the family like? What was the household like?
Mate, only child for starters.
Is that right?
Yeah, and the old man, dad's an only child as well, and grew up in St George area. Parents were school teachers.
Okay.
So formative years for all of us when we're young and how our, brains learn and whatnot in our younger years. But yeah, both parents were school teachers, so quite, school teacher-ish, if you will. So it was,
came from a school teacher. So both parents school teachers, which typically is normally like pretty mundane.
Exactly.
Sort of, you know what I mean? Like they're not overachievers.
Zero in common in that aspect.
Yeah, right.
But in terms of shaping my path, Mum passed away many years ago, back in 2002, but like she'd get up really early and mark books and do all the sort of stuff for the classroom.
Yep.
Whereas other teachers had sort of worked 9 to 3 and Mum had worked from sort of 5 a.m. and just, you're not getting paid for that. Didn't really make any sense to me, that work ethic in a role like that. And then I got my first personal training client back when I was like 18 or 19, first year of my sports science degree, and this bloke lived on the water on Gunnemutter Bay and loaded, and, I trained him 5 mornings a week at his house and would sit there and have breakfast afterwards, and just a whole, like rich dad, poor dad, Robert Kiyosaki sort of stuff in terms of, he was the first sort of entrepreneur business mentor I came across, and it was just a whole other world of, you have a crack, you do this, you fail forward, learn as you go. He's got a deep waterfront on Gunnemutter Bay and, goes into the office whenever he wanted. So it was a whole other way of living that I hadn't had exposure to. And at uni, I didn't have exposure to it. And at school, I definitely didn't. And at home, I didn't. But then I saw him, and I think it just lit a spark in me about possibilities and whatnot.
How old were you this time?
19.
19.
Yeah, 19 with Bert, his name was. His name is, yeah. And he was great. Sort of took me as my first, I guess, business mentor. He just saw the same thing in me, and we'd train for about 5 minutes, and he goes, let's go and have breakfast. We didn't do a lot of training. We just got along really well, and we talked a lot about business and things he'd done in the past. And, I just it was like a mentoring program when I was 19, and his kids were really, still early years of high school. And so they weren't really sort of old enough to ask those questions, and they didn't, like a lot of kids at that age aren't that motivated, but they went on to get very motivated, and they're great.
So his kids have done really well too?
Yeah,
really?
Kick goals, big time. But at that time, obviously they were still young and at school, and, I think he got motivated and enthusiastic about my sort of desire to learn off him, and we got on great and whatnot. But back to like formative years as a young kid, like and I think this is true, apart from you, Sam Gordon, I was about to say, look, no, top tier, fast growing company entrepreneurs, none of them look like Brad Pitt except Sam Gordon if he had a bit of a brown colour in his hair, right? So most of the best entrepreneurs, let's be honest, folks, they got a head like a busted. Now, I reckon there's a direct correlation between having a head like a busted and being Mr. Average and shooting the lights out in business. Why? Because we want to be seen, we want to matter. That's what drives people in the early days, to get out of inertia into momentum. You want to be seen, you want to be heard, you want your life to matter. You don't know what matter is at all, or what that purpose and meaning is that we so badly desire, but we want it, we need it, we know we need it, we don't really know how to get it. So we embark on a business pursuits because we're kind of like at school, I sort of felt I wasn't like shit at everything. I was just average. Like, we went to an academic school, so I was average in an academic school. Like, but
it's so often, right?
But I'm in the middle.
It's often the case with entrepreneurs. They don't do that well. Man, I was never great at school.
Oh, it's horrible. I got ADHD on steroids, so hated school. Mum and my parents are school teachers. So talking about what shapes you, here's a guy with ADHD, Dead set. The best I ever went in any class was modern history in year 7 when Dad said, if you, still remember this, if you show good attitude or whatever and you get a B or C for your attitude, whatever, you get a new golf bag.
Really?
So I brushed all my mates up the back, sat up the front. Dad said almost painted my eyes on to keep them open to look, got the golf bag because I was just bored. Rope learning, the ability to just...
So that incentive, almost that incentive being like the carrot being dangled in front of you.
Yeah. I just struggled with like learning all this stuff to spew out onto a page and didn't add up to me to like, but what for? Cool, I know those dates, but it's like math makes a lot of sense if you're monetizing it.
Yeah.
But Pythagoras' theory and pi and whatnot when you're in year 8 math, they make a whole heap of sense at that point. So the practical applications of these things I find, found interesting. And I had an interest in fitness and started sort of training in the garage when I was 15 or 16. But that, to go back to origin stories, and I'm so glad that that's a focal point of this podcast for you because it's critical. It shapes all of us. And I was sort of, backhanded compliment about the Brad Pitt thing, but all jokes aside for all the listeners, like something... If you're shooting the lights out everywhere, like, you look like Brad Pitt, you can play sports, you're good at everything, like you're not really going to work 18 hours a day in a business because you got it going too good, right? Like that's half the thing. It just that, but when you haven't got all that going on and you see an opportunity in business and then people start to see you because you took that opportunity and now you feel like you matter a bit more and now you're being seen and you're not invisible and you're not Mr. Average and that's addictive. And then you keep chasing that. And then the ego's having a field day. You need the ego, but you got to keep it in check. Yeah. It's not like the enemy. It's not absolute good or bad, but you got to have awareness about it. I had no awareness. And with that Mr. Average in the middle comes low self-esteem, comes a lack of confidence with things, but not like a shockingly low one that's obvious. I feel like with entrepreneurs, people think, oh, they look really confident. They're not. They're insecure. And it's their ego masquerading as low self-esteem, et cetera, because of the ego. But it's all the same driver in those early days. And I think the key is pivoting over time to realise that. Like you can't put the old head on young shoulders, as they say, and nor should you try. But for younger people listening to this, being aware is definitely the first, second, third step of it, because if you're not aware, you can't change what you can't see. If I was not aware, and that's not an excuse at all. I just know what happens if you're not aware. Like I also thought the more money, the more happy, the more everything. No, money's not good or bad. It makes you more of what you are. So if you shit before you make lots of money, you're going to be lots of shit. If you got lots of issues before you make lots of money, you're going to have lots and lots and lots of issues because it compounds and exposes, as you'd know. Yep. That's why I admire the success you've had and are having and will continue to, because you keep your feet on the ground. But we're all human, and something that's so important to say on this podcast especially is like we're perfectly imperfect, and whatever you hear on a podcast, whatever you see on YouTube, it's not fabricated. It's just a highlight reel. You cherry pick the best bits. 100%. Don't look at things others are doing and then go, oh, I'm not as good as that. Rubbish. You're not seeing the blooper reel or how many goes that person had to get good at it. You're just seeing the finished product. And if we compare ourselves to that, we never get started. Yeah. But in those early days, and again, if you're not born into wealth, those early days were mum and dad school teachers. Mum died young. So I'm like, well, I don't want to work my whole life and then die. Yeah. Like she retired and then she died like 3 months later. Horrible, right? Jesus. But that just happens. Yeah, it does happen. Like she was 54, she had bowel cancer, it spread everywhere, had an operation, didn't come out of the operation. It just happens. It's life. But like if you got a job and you're working for the government, until you retire, well, that, she worked to then, in theory, be able to enjoy a retirement, but just never got to.
Yeah.
And that happens to everyone. Like I'm blessed today because I'm alive, but doesn't mean I'll feel good every day either. Some days I feel shithouse. I might feel shithouse in an hour. I'm aware, and that's the other thing. Like it's not like set and forget, okay, I've got it sorted now, business or life or anything. It's like constantly tweaking and learning and observing and whatnot. But in those early years as a young bloke, even my sports and whatnot, like I was good at golf. I wasn't great. I was good at these things. But then you get good, but I got really good at business easily. And then I liked it because I was able to do things that I couldn't do in other areas of my life.
Why do you think you got good at it so easy? Like so quickly, so easy?
It's a great question. And I could answer it by saying, why do you think you did? Because it's very similar. I think it's having that gut feel, being able to read the play, read the room, read the person, join the dots with what's going on in whether it be the fitness industry or the property market, or like for whatever reason, I just, when I was 19, 20, whatever, I just saw that there were big gyms coming into Australia, and I thought, all right, well, sure, they're going to be great, but there's going to be a whole heap of people who want one-on-one private bespoke boutique. So it wasn't like the end of the small gym. It was the inception of the small gym, because not everyone wants big.
Yep.
But 99% of people are like, oh, Fitness First are coming, mate. That's gonna stuff you up.
Yeah.
I just saw it differently. I know that's the opportunity, champ.
So they were looking at backing out, whereas you were looking at, okay, well, how do we actually double down?
I was looking at opening small gyms next to every Fitness First.
Beautiful.
Literally.
Really?
At a young, because mate, you do all the marketing.
Yeah.
And the disgruntled ones will do, hey, come on in over here. We'll give you a cuddle, one-on-one, no turnstiles, you beauty, come join us. No egos here, leave them next door. Yeah, everything, for whatever reason, you bigger, better, faster, more, cool. But there's an opportunity over here, smaller, boutique, personal.
Yeah.
For those who don't want that massive show.
Yeah.
So that does not put that out of business. Or there's room for everyone if you can read the play, but if you can't, you don't see the opportunity. I just thought, well, if they're going to do that, they'll do, as a good case study or example, like Fitness First or Healthland or Virgin, they're going to spend millions on site location due diligence, right? So, okay, well, I'll let them spend millions on that, and I'll piggyback them.
Yeah, for
I'll
sure.
get the joint next door. And taking that to any industry, like what are others doing and why?
Yeah.
And what was everyone doing 2 years ago, 3, 4, 5 years ago? Where was the industry, the market back then, 3, 4, 5 years ago? Where is it today? And based on that historical data, timeline, and how it's tracking, well, we've got a pretty good chance of knowing where it's going to go. And then be there first. And that sums up to me entrepreneurship and how to go about doing that. It's not luck. There was a book written by Bo Peabody that 2 people gave to me, 2 friends, randomly, because it was called Lucky or Smart.
Yeah, right.
And they go, this is you. It's not luck. It's this. It's the formula for being able to look at, and you do this all the time, and we talk about it a lot, and that's why you have such amazing success. You do that naturally. Like you just can see where things were, where they are, where they're going to go probably as a result of that, and get there first and scale accordingly to meet the need of where we think it's going to go. And we test and measure small, like we don't, bet the farm on something if we're not sure. We just test and measure, and then we scale up from there. And that's what you continue to do in Australian Property Scout and School of Property and all the stuff you do. It's textbook. That's why I love working with you, because it's like we'll have a chat and you just pull the trigger and it's like textbook. And that's fun because it's not like, we're stuck.
Yeah.
Half the thing with growing, you can't be the constraint, as we've said many times, or the bottleneck in your own business. Otherwise, you're buried. And for all the listeners out there, if you're really buried under the workload in your business, the very thing that was your dream, this is so important for small business owners, right? The very thing that was a person's dream becomes their nightmare. The very thing that inspired them demoralizes them because they're buried under it. We've got to be careful not to expect too much of our business in terms of how it makes us feel. Because when we're innovative and creative entrepreneur types, we get really, really excited about the possibilities of it at the start. But that works for a couple of years and then it doesn't. It works until it doesn't. And then if you don't have other things going on, you get really bored and start resenting the very thing that you loved. So, and that was a big part of the mistakes I made because I didn't get that memo. I didn't get the build a life as you go sort of memo in my 20s. I just got really excited and pumped about building businesses, and I just didn't have anything really outside of that. And everything I touch, it's like, all or none. Like I'm a Ferrari with no brakes. So once I discovered alcohol and cocaine, you can do the maths and join the dots.
But it's like, I think even in itself, and I look at a lot of entrepreneurs that do really, really well, we're all wired very similarly to that. You know what I mean? Like there is no like what, what's a break for really? Like, yeah, okay, we want to be assessing things as we're doing it, but at the same time, if there's opportunity there, why are we slowing down? If there's
it's really good,
especially if you're very good at it, like you were in your 20s. Like I thankfully it was very good for me to have my success at the age I did, because I'd already been humbled by not making it in soccer, by having issues that didn't allow me to, like body issues that didn't allow me to get into special forces, like past injuries that I wasn't able to get. So I'd already been humbled with different things in my life before I had my success.
It's interesting.
Which I actually never really thought about that when I think about you, man. You started having serious success at 21, 22. Like, man, you're there's no offense here, but like you're so immature as an adult at that age compared to 31, 32 when I started having
too young.
A fucking decade up my sleeve compared to you of life experiences and humbling moments that pull you back down. You know what I mean? So it's like, you look at the I guess the correlations between those, and there's probably a reason why.
Massive.
You had so much success, but also subsequently implosion at the same time.
Absolutely, right? And you nailed it. If you're not if you haven't been humbled a bit, then it can run away with you, as it did me. But I think at that age, at such a young age, I agree with your point about, most of us are the brains similar. I get bored of things pretty quickly. Like I love creating them, getting people in place, systems, like all of it, the marketing, getting it to pump, and then I'm like, I'll go do something else. It's not conducive to multi-generational wealth creation, right? Because you just eat hand grenades. When in doubt, eat a hand grenade, blow up your life, start again. Like, come on. So it was so easy that I just said, I'll go do that, I'll go do this, I'll go do that. Well, you can't do that forever, and it's a disaster and you ruin your life. So, I think everything, we all want something to be a bit better at this or not this or that. Everyone's a work in progress until the day they die, obviously, is a cliche. But with the business side of things, the big issue I had was learning nothing good happens fast at the very start. It compounds over time. It's exponential, and it's faster over time, but not early on. It's very one-to-one. Hiring, you learn how to hire and how to leverage your time and how to do it. But that all takes time. Like you said before we started the podcast, like a year ago today was the launch of School of Property. There goes a year. And as you get older, like they all just, blend in. I remember older people saying to me back in the day, like, mate, you get a bit older and it all just blends in. Next minute, here I am with my Just For Men beard and telling you. And it's bizarre. It's weird how quickly it goes.
Yeah.
But my entire 20s and 30s were sort of head down, bum up. Well, and party. It was either build businesses or party. There was nothing else. But then you wake up and you're 40 almost and you're like, well, I'm not doing that for another 20 years. And my default was just, okay, when in doubt, 10x the focus and work my backside off and poke my head up in 5 years' time. Well, you can do that in your 20, but you can't do that forever.
Yeah, I feel you.
Got to be more strategic about it. You don't just outwork it, but early on the driver for me, formative years as a young boy, definitely, I think once I started I think we all want to feel successful. There's nothing, and this isn't a criticism of me or anyone. Really, it's just I think we all want to feel successful. We want to feel like we're winning, when we're trying and we're learning and improving and whatnot. And then you start to actually do that in business, and then you want more and more and more and more of it. And then if, in my case, nothing was enough. And what I'd say to people now is until you realise, that nothing is ever enough if you're not building a good life along the way. Because there's always someone who's just bought the new this or the blah, 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 all that. And summitless mountain, get used to the side of the hill, not climbing the summit.
There's always someone in front of you as well, right? And this is, I think it's a tricky trap to fall into. And I know I've fallen into it before. I've seen people in front of me, either with more than me or someone's got a better car or someone's, maybe not these days.
Not these days with you, Sammy, bloody hell.
But like with businesses and everything like that as well, or even different industry, and you look at them all, I look at podcasting, you know what I mean? Even in my space, my niche of property, and then obviously with this, what we're doing now, man, if all I did was, which is what I used to do back when I first started, especially having some success, was becoming fixated on the people in front of me rather than focusing on what I was doing well, and just doubling, tripling, 10xing down on that. And I think that was the biggest shift that I had. And I know, you helped me a lot with the realizations around a lot of this of how important that is, and to fucking stop looking at everyone else and just focusing on what you're doing, because that's when the real transition happens, because you're focusing inward, not outward, not looking at everyone else, right?
That's a great point. And to your point before about formative years, I'll skip forward a bit. When I was doing BodyTrim and I was on TV every day, every channel, every day, but live TV was one of them as well. Prior to all that, I thought, well, if I get a weight loss product out there and a weight loss system and I'm on TV and people know me, then that's it, I've made it. Newsflash. Do that for about a month and then you're bored. Well, you haven't made anything. You resent going to Channel 7 and doing live TV. That was like your dream.
Yeah.
We've got to stop because we're searching outside of ourselves the whole time for that thing that's going to get it, feel, and it does for a period of time. And then it stops working. So then we've got to find something else. That was me to a T. Like, if I'm on TV and I know all these famous people and I'm an F-grade celebrity, then I've made it. My life's there's moments where it feels good in the short term, but it's flawed, that logic, because there's always someone bigger, better, faster, more this, more that, or you want to be on doing something else on the TV or whatever it is. Like all that promotion and TV stuff's great, provided it's not all you have in your life. If you've got other stuff, then it's great. I let it consume me and I let it define me way too much versus having other things in my life like horses and dogs and playing golf and doing stuff with my mates and all that sort of jazz. So I think, it's Buddhism 101, the middle path, not extreme either side. I think that's where you find the sweet spot. And it's interesting how the very things that I thought would make me feel successful and my life to matter, I felt that for a short term, but then over time it stopped working. So I realised that, hang on, well, that always stops working because it's not just external things.
Can I ask you something on that as well? Because I think I've been feeling a little bit of this lately too. Do you think it's because when you get to that point, in a way, it's because you're like, well, I've earned this, so this is just the point. So then where's the next tier to then go up to? Because I look at myself with my cars and people are like, oh my God, I got a Ferrari, I got a Lamborghini, and people are like, oh my God, they walk into the factory and they see them, they're like, does this feel real? And it's like, yeah, it fucking feels real. I've been investing for 15 years. I've been working my ass off for the last 6 years in this business that I've built. And so, and I don't say that in a vain way. I'm just like, well, no, I've done the work. So yes, it feels very real because I've earned this. And it's been a 15-year journey of a hard slog. And I think it's funny, man, when I hear you say that, I'm like, because I feel it myself, right? So like it's just triggering a few things in my mind. And like, what are your thoughts on the fact of, and do you think this is spawned off, okay, sorry, there's a few things I'm throwing at you here.
No, mate, go.
Even like that high achiever syndrome where like you achieve something to an extremely high level, but then it's always like, okay, well, what's next? You know what I mean? Like, well, I've achieved this, I've owned this, I'm now dominating this. Man, you're on every channel every morning, especially when that was huge. This is 20 years ago, man. So we're talking about when that was prime time, you know what I mean? Those
back
morning
when people
shows.
Still watch the telly.
100%. Literally, man. It was fucking prime time.
Hair on my head and everything.
So like what are your thoughts around that? And if anything as well, what would the advice be around how do you keep that in check? Or is that just a consequence of high achieve syndrome and you're always going to be feeling
it? I've coached so many people over the last 5 or 6 years and I sort of, fell into that role organically, just people I knew in my network through 20 years of business and what have you. And I think it is. I think it's that high achiever syndrome that I wrote about years back and because I noticed it in all the clients that were high achievers. It's high achiever syndrome. In that it's a double-edged sword.
I took that saying from you, the expression.
Yeah, no worries. No, that's all right.
I take most of mine from you.
Oh, mate, thanks, Sammy. Very kind. But it is. It's to the point where I've seen clients say, look, mate, you got to turn that into a book. That's the best thing. That is exactly me. That's what they said. Multiple. Because it's double-edged sword. The thing that makes us break through and achieve huge commercial success can also be something that holds us back in terms of getting bored and not staying the course, or just expecting too much of the business to make us feel a certain way, right? Now, if we don't expect too much of the business to feel a certain way, then we don't pressure cook it. I mean, we don't demand too much of it because the business is a living, breathing thing. It's full of people and products and services and whatnot. You can't just force the result. And it's the same with everything. Things take time to percolate. And I think, that high achiever that wants to, we get that great dopamine hit that we need. We feel good by the high achieving. But at the same time, if we don't realise that it can trip us over, then we just keep on the same pattern. And I think my goal is to not stay on the same pattern forever. And if I see patterns in my life, like I do something for 5 years, I get bored, well, that doesn't mean it's bad. It's just that if there's a pattern 4 times you've done that, well, make sure you get out at 4.5 years.
Yep.
Don't try and stay motivated year 7 if you've never done it to date, sort of thing. Right, I'm very good at like innovating things, like I'm making a golf swing trainer and a few other ideas I've got. I'll probably roll out next year based on just what's needed. Like solve a bigger problem, get a bigger paycheck, like bigger fun, bigger stimulation, everything for me. And, that's a good example in terms of entrepreneurialism and high performance and what have you. Like golf's an interesting one because I've thought for about 10 years the golf ball doesn't move, but everyone's shit. It just doesn't move. It's not moving. It's not tennis, not baseball. It's not moving. It's on the ground. Sometimes it might move a little bit on the grass, but not very much, but everyone's shit. Doesn't make sense to me. My brain can't reconcile that. So I had to work, and then I studied the physics behind it, not just what someone said on Channel 4. Like, that's what most people do. Get on YouTube and old mate said this.
Yeah.
But actually understanding root cause. What I try and do now with everything, and I think this is where I'd like to think I've evolved over time, as I think we all can and should and do, is looking at everything in terms of cause and effect. Now, golf's a good metaphor example for an entire industry treating the symptoms, not the cause. Now, that's so true in a lot of people's lives. You can't have high performance does not live there. If you are constantly band-aiding a symptom, that's not high performance, right?
Solutions-based thinking, right? Like actually coming up with solutions to a problem. Yeah,
and looking at golf swing as an example of this. All right, well, if everyone swings the golf club behind their bum, like 99% of people, and then you go over the top or you earlier, that's bad. And 99% of people do that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
What about gravity? What about posture? What about the physics of the club head? Oh, it turns out, okay, so if you relax your posture, it's easier to stay down. But if you don't do any of that, none of which has ever been asked by coaches in golf, it's impossible to do what the coach is saying because the coach's posture is different to the student's posture and neither realise it, so it ships in the night. You may as well be talking in Swahili. So the high performance piece for me is that deeper understanding. I don't think you can have real sustained success without a deeper understanding of the key drivers, the levers that need to be pulled at certain times to keep it going in a business. Or, like we've talked about with, your business and how you're structuring the growth and staying in front of the growth and the strategic thinking, the critical thinking, the causal factors, not just band-aiding the symptom.
Yeah, 100%. No, I love that, man. I love that. Man, I want to dive back for 1 second to something you said before around like the lucky or smart, right? Was it someone Peabody?
Bo Peabody, Lucky got a golden egg on the cover.
I can't forget the Peabody, but Bo Peabody. Man, I laugh when people say like around anyone in life, when you hear someone say, oh, you were lucky or whatever, it's like that. And it's like, man, you've got to you're positioning yourself before something happening, right? You know what I mean? Whatever it is. For one, you're putting in the work. But even if it's something like, oh, you were lucky because you were able to buy it this time or that time, whatever. And it's like, no, well, in this, I say this for myself personally, I saved for 3 years as a 16, 17, 18-year-old to then buy my first property at 19. It's like I created that result. What are your thoughts around that because people would get it, right? Especially like people listening to this podcast, they may already be high achievers and doing really well, but they may be in that transitionary period they're going through where they are starting to have some success. And especially copying a bit of shit from the outside going, oh mate, you're just lucky. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you're so lucky, whatever. Like, what are your thoughts around that? Even for one, I guess like the thinking around it, but then for two, I guess like keeping yourself well ahead of any of that.
It's easy. Okay,
bullshit.
So, and again, I'm not, I love people, but the human condition we all are susceptible to, and it's much easier to say someone's lucky than have a look at yourself.
Yep.
So what are humans hardwired to do? Avoid pain. They'll do anything to avoid pain more than seek pleasure.
Survival instinct, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, how do you avoid pain? Just, if someone's killing it and shooting the lights out, they're lucky, they got lucky. No, they didn't.
Okay.
Right, so that's why most people, they do it, A, for that self-preservation, pain avoidance, coping. for their lot in life because they didn't roll the dice or they didn't do X, Y, Z, or they didn't do, buy X amount of properties when they were 18, 19, 20, and they didn't start off on an income of 10 grand and build it up to 90 and buy 35 properties by the age of 23 or whatever you were from one article in a dentist's waiting room or something, and then you subscribe to every bloody property magazine on earth, and next minute you're worth $700 billion, rock and roll, right? That's what people think. Oh,
numbers are a little off, but we're
inflated,
in the
bit of poetic license.
Thanks, mate.
ACCC won't get me.
You tell a great story.
I try my best. I'm my first rodeo. Rest assured, folks. No, but I think, the high achiever stuff. Most people just it's easier to blame other people. The reason I had massive wealth and success young and then went bust and had to start again was me, no one else. Now, there's always people playing parts in your life. However, I'm not the smartest bloke alive, but I know this. From second one of my life, second one, not minute one, second one, to right now, I'm the only person who's been there for all of it. So anyone who doesn't fucking take ownership of their life's an imbecile. So that means most people are imbeciles. But it does. Let's just look at it as math.
100%.
That is dead set fact from the first second till now. Who has been in my life more than me for that time? No one. You idiot. Me. So therefore, own it. Awareness, ownership, change. So if I keep making the same mistakes, Geoff, you're an idiot. Learn. What did I learn? How can I be better? What did I learn? How can I be better? In light of past experiences, lessons, learnings, what's the smart thing to do today? Not just, I'll just do the same thing I've done every time and expect a different result. Well, we all know what that is, right? So therefore, but this is the difference maker. And now there's always going to be things, people will do the wrong thing by you, I'm sure, at times. And other times people do amazing things for you. They're all external variables beyond our control. If we're looking for high performance, as per this podcast, high performance is not found whenever we appoint blame because we become powerless. We hand our power to others. And there's nothing good there. The creative juices, gone. Entrepreneurial flair, gone. Innovation, zero. There's always things in could have, should have, would have, and this bloke or this or she or that. Yeah, cool. Everyone's got that. Everyone's got that forever. But what did I learn? Because then you feel powerful. Now, if you go into business with someone and they rip you off, well, they didn't hold a gun to your head when you did it. So you made that choice. Doesn't mean it's okay for people to rip you off. It's what did I learn? I'm at 48, I just haven't got time for going around in circles. What did I learn? I try and look at it for high performance like a video game. If it's a video game, there are rules in the game. So you get better at adhering to the rules. And by way of how you go about your day. Now, if you hang on to resentments and fears and struggles and you're bitter and whatnot, well, you're going to attract more of that. If you don't, then you won't. Then you'll attract more things. More things seem to come your way when you're playful and curious and life's an adventure. Now, analyse the roots or pick the fruits, Jim Rohn said. No one knows how it works, but it does. So I think cultivating that state of calm, clear, not defined by any one thing or what others think, and what you did with your life or today and your integrity and whatnot, and that's all that should be the test, not the opinion of others who don't know. And that it just keeps you focused, head down, blinkers on, in your lane like you do so well, and you resource and offload the stuff that others can do well, and you stay really focused on where you're taking everything. And that's the key to growth and scale and life and new challenges and what interests me, and I think that's high performance. That's the good part of high performer syndrome, not just doing something because I've always done it. Doing something because I've always done it, I can't. And it's not like I'm for everyone listening, it's not like I'm some sort of renegade maverick breakaway from, I just can't do that, something that I'm not interested in forever. Rogan did in one of his podcasts, said he goes, the key was realising I can't do 9 to 5. I can't have a job. Love him, hate him, whatever. He says he's very similar to me in that, he's a stand-up comic. It's similar, you can just thrive on the spot live. You're like that. That's not a 9 to 5 brain.
Yeah.
I reckon in 100 years, 200 years, you'll be able to put on someone's put on a hat that's got all your neurons and you get to actually feel what it's like to live with your headset.
Interesting.
I'm sure because like you imagine there's still
advancements in technology. 100%.
Yeah. So they're still finding new receptors in the brain.
Crazy.
Still to this day in 2024, they don't know. They don't know. Like with ADHD, they know that there's 2 frontline stimulant medications that can help. People don't fully know why. They know it's an intermittent dopamine thing, right? But they don't know exactly all the mechanisms. They just don't. It's so above our pay grade, right? But maybe in a couple of 100 years, you put on a little hat. That's what it was like to be Sam in terms of when something happened. You know, like when some people, like their impulse control is really poor, you know, and all of us struggle at times, but some people get fired up really, right? Well, there's something going on, the neurons, and right, there's a response. But learning to quieten that so you don't eat the hand grenade in life, I think is one of the keys to it. Because my little analogy or metaphor, imagine you're a trapeze artist on a tightrope walking across like a swamp or whatever, something not good. That's like human drama and bullshit and whatnot. Now, if you trigger and you're like, what? Oh, he said what? Oh, he wants me to do this. You are straight off the bloody trapeze in with the alligators and the swamps people.
Yeah.
Right? In the shit, basically, the swamp people. Right? You're down there in the crap.
No offense to all the swamp people out there.
No offense, Southern Florida or wherever it is, Floridians or something of that nature. But that's the reality. But when you stay centered, which is such a work on, and also for the entrepreneur high achievers, we're worse at that. I'm shit, but I just didn't want another 20 years of being shit at that. It's too hard.
Yeah, I get you.
It's too hard. It breaks me. Like when you're 36 now. Four, beg your pardon.
You're right, mate. 34.
I ran out of juice at 35 going the way. I just couldn't do it anymore. I just didn't have it. I just went so like, who cares, next, go. It was just brutal. I'm over it. I just can't keep going that way. It needed a different fuel.
Yeah.
The fuel in my, insecurity, low self-esteem, start a business, feel good, let's go again, great. But it ran out of juice at 35 because I'm like, you know what? It's really interesting. No one actually gives a fuck about what you're up to or anyone else. That's rubbish. They scratch that. They might make a comment and that doesn't mean they care. They're not going to bed at night thinking about you, me or anyone. And that's half the battle. You got to realise that. A lot of people are stuck in inertia, mooring lines, et cetera, because they actually think people on their Sunday roast are like pulling apart. Well, so let's talk about Sally and her life choices. No one's doing that. Talking about himself. So coming on this podcast today, the reason I don't do a lot of this anymore, and it's just so many talking heads. I'm tired by everyone's talk. It's just bullshit. It's just so much bullshit out there. There's so much noise that doesn't really help anyone except the person monetizing their message. And I just don't want to be that person anymore.
Yeah, I feel you.
Now, I don't know where that road will take me. I really don't, but I'm very open about that, and I've said it to you before. That's fine. But I just don't want to do. G'day, folks. Aussie Geoff here. Let's talk about mindset. But I'll tell you what, first 10 callers today, $3,000 free worth of mindset stuff. I'm going to give it to you now. But also some protein bars. Give us a call, 1-300.
Aussie Geoff.
I just can't do that anymore, right?
Yeah, you're pretty good at it,
mate.
It's still there.
It's all there, mate. But I just can't. It's just I don't know. At 48, I did it for so long.
Yeah.
I need to care deeply about things. Otherwise I've done that. And doing it just for a big payday, it worked for a while, but it stopped. So I know that alone doesn't do it for me. Now I got more issues in the Daily Telegraph, so hopefully everyone's not as complicated and disturbed as me, but cherry pick the best bits out of this and, whatever resonates. But that's why finding things that bring me to life that are stimulating. And I like seeing people actually realise that they're way better than they think they are. Like I say, no one's as good as they look, but we're all much better than we think. Right? Success is a feeling, not a number. Success is a feeling because if your goal was to make $1 million a year and you did that for a couple of years and then you stopped, you wouldn't feel successful anymore because it didn't go up. So it's not a number, it's a feeling. Success is a feeling, not a number. Gratitude is a feeling, not a list. I wrote gratitude lists when the wheels fell off and I got depressed with my gratitude list because it was so mechanical, robotic. It's a feeling. Like at the moment there's a baby horse outside my window with its mum and it's 1 week old. And I go and sit in the paddock with that horse and it's unbelievable. And it's so pure. There's such a that's being human to me. Like I get a feeling. It's a really special part of being human is that connection when you see that innocence in a baby animal. Like I don't get that out of looking at a screen. You know, when it comes over and it smells your hand and it's only tiny and mum's there and you got to earn mum's trust and then mum lets the baby and it just smells your hand and you just sit like this. That's beautiful. It's something magic. I don't get that out of a screen or anything. So that's that being human piece. That's what, I crave, that feeling, feeling alive, where I am, not kind of, as cliche as it is, thriving where I am, not striving to get over there to then feel alive. Because, we don't then, we only now. Hard thing is, I think, Sammy, sorry to keep rambling on.
No, sweet, mate, sweet.
But I think what I've come to realise, Eckhart Tolle as an example, like a lot of this stuff's been really well explained, especially by Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now and New Earth. But words, it's hard to explain things in words, even though, I'm probably a bit of a wordsmith, my mates will say at times, and writing copy and TV and that, but words don't do certain feelings justice. I've found in my own life, we'd like to actually have a level of inner peace. What does that actually mean until you feel some of it? So you don't know?
Yeah.
Like what does motivated feel? It's a word. So we can take things too far based on.
You've got to go through it, but right.
That's right.
And man, so many of these things you've actually got to go through it. And so I was letting you talk, man, because I know you were just like riffing, all this stuff was coming to you. And I think it's so interesting, man, because like everything you kind of went through there, it's off the back of things that have happened in your life. And like you said, then you blew up at 35 and then you're just like, fuck it, I'm done with this. I don't want it anymore. And all the things you've been chasing for all those years were now irrelevant. And now you're at 48 now and you're looking back and it's funny because like, not funny, but it's interesting to look at and be like, it's actually the simple things in life now and literally like even drilling back to a very nature perspective, which at its essence is the most simple things in life because it's fucking there. Is actually what gives you the most joy now compared to if you had 100 mil sitting in the bank account. It's the same as you're saying about the screen, doing the infomercials, all the rest of the sort of stuff. It's like all those zeros in the account never gave you the feeling or the satisfaction that you actually have now with those simple things. Can I ask out of curiosity, because there was a few questions that were rattling through, you probably saw I was writing a couple of things there as you're going because I didn't want to interrupt you. And I know, we still got to jump into your journey around a few of the different businesses and stuff as well. But like that implosion at 35, and one of the other things I want to say here as well is your level of thinking and like the way that you think also correlates, undoubtedly would correlate to that mentality you have of like boom, 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 and then bang, explosion, right? The average person who could probably control and not have the explosion also probably wouldn't have had the mindset or the entrepreneurial or the flair and like, man, you haven't done an ad for 15 years, you fucking bang, it's on there. It's like you never stopped, you know what I mean? So it's like that part of your being, and I think this is what people have to, and this is what I think you've really helped me accept within myself. I think Morgs actually still struggles with it a little bit, is that is the way that people like you and I are wired. But it's learning how to manage it.
I'm telling you, Sammy, and this is why I wanted to come on because you're a champion bloke, good mate, but the topic is so important for people. Like, and this is how much I care about this topic, right? Because I'm not on here to strategically monetize something down the road. No, I'm on here because it's a really important topic, because this high performance thing and how we cook ourselves and how it's so paradoxical. This performance is paradoxical. Like we think we've got to work really, really hard forever, and no, you'll cook yourself. Like you try and hit a golf ball too hard, it's a disaster. You work too hard, it's a disaster. How we're built neurologically, physiologically. Now, I think we can change we can strengthen more positive neural pathways in the brain, neuroplasticity, et cetera. But to your point about how we're built, 100%, like that's why it's a double-edged sword. And I love that you said that, because I really believe that. You know, you might implode, blow up, eat hand grenades, whatever, but after 2 or 3 empires that you built, you got a far greater propensity to eat the hand grenade. But without that propensity, you're not building those empires.
You're not building that business,
so there's sort of like Joe Everyman plodding along. And I'm not, that sounds so condescending. It's not. If I could be that person, I'm not against it. I just can't.
It's just wired.
It's wired.
100%.
And this
We're all
is
different.
the key.
We're all different.
That's right. I love that you say that, because that, if people watch things like this, you're a great example because you're so successful and you just call it for how it is. And like really, I think the key to high performance for the individual is working out where you can perform at a high level. Well, it's got to start with some awareness. You can't change what you can't see. You got to own it, the things that you need to, and then change the things that you can, right? But within the parameters of where you thrive. So now in business speak, like some people are front office, some people are back office. Well, if you're a back office person, right, well, get out of the front office if you're in it. Now, this again, it's none of this is meant to sound condescending, but the old me would be like, oh, back office people are boring. Oh, accountants. Oh, ops manager. Supply chain. Oh, I'm going to go to the gym. I'll give that a miss, right? I'd duck and weave supply chain, CFO. They're critical pieces, none of which are boring to me now, but because it wasn't my wheelhouse, right, it's a bit slow moving, right? Go through the P and Grant Thornton are coming in. Oh, shit. So I'll get on the piss just to numb that boredom, right? So understanding that, because it was moving too slow. That ability to like join dots, golf ball doesn't move. What's everyone doing? Okay, we could roll out a program. We'll do that. We'll be like that. I'm not trying to do that. I can't help not to. Like I just, if things don't line up to me based off what someone says and what something feels like, I'll just keep exploring it. It doesn't mean, I think as humans, what we do, we're very guilty of this. And here's a great hack for everyone. Whoever's the best in the world at something at the moment, I think we unconsciously, unknowingly, if they're the best in the world at the moment now, we think they're the best in the world at the moment ever. Wrong. I've only realised this very recently.
I see where you're going with this.
Right?
Yeah.
Now I'll use, golf's just a metaphor. You don't have to like golf, doesn't matter. But most people have heard of Tiger Woods. Most people have heard of Jack Nicklaus. What is really good about YouTube and being able to get some of this content is now you can get on YouTube and watch the last round of the US Masters in the 70s. The 70s, because it's all been uploaded from Augusta. Now, Nicklaus has won 19 majors, Tiger 15. If you look at Jack Nicklaus's posture compared to modern day golfers, it's night and day. But he wouldn't, but it's like we dismiss it because it was years ago. The bloke used to hit his driver 300 yards with a 41-inch length shaft and a Persimmon wood head. Like this is in the 70s.
You think of the technology in the clubs today compared to back then.
And this is, again,
and yet he's destroying today.
He was the first bomber, right? He bombed it because he kept the club out in front. He worked out, if I get stuck in there, I don't get the speed, blah, blah, blah. But then, decades go past and no one's looking back. They're looking forward or the latest and greatest, right? The latest and greatest. Golf is an example, the latest and greatest. Most of them end up with stress fractures in their lower back and they have operations. Like back surgeries are plaguing in golf professionals.
Interesting.
Lower back stress fractures because of this. So the cursed part of how this brain works is like it's so you can't unsee things. You hear on golf commentary like such and such, Will Zalatoris had another back operation. These aren't isolated events. This is dot joining.
Yeah.
If every second, third, fourth tour pro is getting a bloody stress fracture, there's a few dots to join.
Yeah.
That means that posturally they're so engaged, locking out their lower back, and that impact, repetitive impact with a locked spine, what does that equate to? Stress fractures. Nicklaus allowed gravity. He allowed himself. When you're doing a deadlift, when you are like farmer's carry or walking lunge, you allow gravity because you're holding a heavy weight. But when you're not holding a heavy weight, you don't know to allow it. You resist it because you're not holding it. So like success leaves clues. So for people listening to this that want to do, new business, new challenge, whatever, here's how I would look at what I've just said. All right, in golf context, who's won the most majors ever? Oh, it turns out Jack Nicklaus. Turns out he's won 19. Second is Woods. Third is Daylight. Fourth is Daylight. Fifth is Daylight. This is how blatant it is to me. So forget that it's golf. I'm going to have a look at what that bloke did that won 19 majors. Because if he's won 19 and everyone says Tiger's the best and he's won 15 and he's 4 behind, what did this other bloke do?
Yeah, and then no one's even in the ballpark.
No one's in the ballpark. This guy's a proper and
G.
no one's looked at it.
Yeah.
See how wow.
Interesting.
Wow. And this is not like in 1890. This is in the 60s, the 70s, and he beat Norman in 86, I think, at Augusta, Jack, when he was – Norman had the auto choke and steered it out to the right, and that was, I think, the start of his auto chokes. He'd had a few of them that was probably the one that cooked him, I think. But that, again, high performance in his head, he was already writing the speech.
Yeah.
He's already on the yacht. Cool your jets there, Greg. You haven't won yet, Chief. And Faudo got in the last group with him in that round in the 90s, and he come and beat him by he clawed back a 7-shot lead on Norman. Jesus. The last day.
Bloody hell.
And in the night before
One day.
talking about high performance, Nick Faudo, the English Sir Nick Faudo, he's like, yes, well, I knew that if I could get in with Greg in the last group, I'll win. He just cooked his head.
No way.
Cooked him.
He's
like, but you're 7 shots behind. I just needed to get in with Greg, then I'll win. Just needed to get next to him and he knew he'd cook him. That's high performance.
Yeah.
So they got to, interestingly, what I've learned about high performance, it's like.
Break down why that's high performance.
So have you ever meditated?
Yes.
Yeah, right. You do a bit of right. So meditation, you relax everything. And it's like it gives you this, you're more equanimous. You've got more buffer between you and what's going on. And in business and life and performance, you can't be so highly strung.
Rigid,
that everything affects you.
Yep.
I've with hitting golf balls a million times better. Leading a horse, like if a horse carries on like a clown, but you're really relaxed, you don't hurt your muscles or anything, and you don't fall off because you just move where the horse moves. There's another point on that. Glenn Boss won 3 Melbourne Cups on Maccabi Diva, so he knows what he's doing. He's not guessing when it comes to horses, right? Again, performance.
Yep.
What are the best in the world saying? Because I guarantee it's not the same as what the books say.
Yeah, right.
Because you're not the best in the world doing the goonoo goo goo books, right? And this is where posture comes in. Bossy, good mate of mine. And again, this is not luck. Because if you work hard and you break through and you're really good at stuff, you meet people who are really good at stuff. That's how you build a great network.
Yep.
If you're really shit at everything and really shit about how you treat people, well, you're going to meet shit people. But if you do really good things in any industry and you care about people, and doesn't mean you're perfect, I'm far from it, but you do genuinely give a shit and you try and help people where you can, well, you build a great network and they're happy to give you a hand at times because you've done the same. It's cause you get what you are, not what you want.
Yeah.
You get what you are, not what you want. But I think in high performance, if you build it up, you fuck it up. If you build it up, you fuck it up. If you build up what it's going to be like when I've got that car or that, you're going to fuck it up some because it's not the all-defining thing, right? They're great. And I was the one who said, however long ago it was now, when you were thinking about the Ferrari, I was basically said, mate, I'd be offended if you didn't buy the best one, or words to that effect, because it was relative to your income, and that's so important for the listeners. It's relative to the individual's income. If we actually could somehow just delete comparison and envy, it'd be so much easier for people to just buy what's appropriate for their income. Now, someone who makes $100 million a year, they can have 10 Bugattis, fly them in on a jet.
Yeah,
it's relative. But the Ferrari, the Lambo, the cars that you've got, it's relative, and we even looked at it as a percentage of your annual income. It was peanuts. It was like I couldn't we couldn't. There was not one reason
I think
not
it was,
to.
I remember we weighed it up against the portfolio.
That's
the
right.
Property portfolio. I remember when we looked at it against that because you're like, well, what's your net equity on this whole portfolio?
And I was looking at, would it affect your ability to keep building? I remember that was the key thing. Would this hinder your ability to keep building your portfolio as you had planned?
Yeah.
No, it would not do it.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
There's no other questions or answers required at that point.
Yeah.
We get in our own way. But it was a no-brainer for me because feet on the ground, it was appropriate for the income and the size of the business and the trajectory the business is on. And the business is not just a cash cow where it's not a Ponzi where you get paid and everyone gets fleeced. It's a proper business where everyone can build amazing careers and there's pathways. Very different to some Ponzi where the bloke at the top gets paid and everyone's out the back door because they're not making money.
Yeah.
Yours is the opposite. It's solid. Like people come in, the valuer, he's from Sydney Uni or something. I think the property valuer.
The valuer was, he's got like 25 years experience as valuer. Yeah.
Like best of breed.
Yeah.
Right? Because you are. And then that's what makes the company rock solid. Like it's living, breathing. If you don't nurture it and do the right thing by it, it can't do the right thing by you. So, but you do that and you give people those pathways and opportunities. You give them a home to thrive. within the framework and parameters of the business that you're brilliant at building. I think some people are brilliant at building out, engineering, being the architect of the business. And then a lot of people are really, really good or brilliant at being in it. I'm not good at being in it.
Yeah.
I'm good at building it, seeing it, getting it going, and then you're having less to do with it. Now, but again,
that was my big change when you showed me that, because I was so deeply entrenched in everything, which I was good at, but I fucking hated, you know, and I was doing 18-hour days, man, or 6 days, just burning myself to the absolute core because I feel like I had to still control everything. But ultimately, like, it wasn't even stuff that I was enjoying. It was just stuff that I was good at, but it didn't.
You know what's interesting?
Yeah.
I think, because I've been pretty open about, I fell into coaching and I'm very grateful to do that and a bit of speaking.
Yeah.
But, I've shared my challenges to you about it.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting here thinking, but, I really enjoy working with you because we unpack things, we work it out, you pull the trigger and it moves.
Yeah.
So I feel, I guess, like I'm winning or successful, right? Because things are moving in a really exciting way. Like chess, not checkers, right? Everyone, like if we're playing chess, just one out, checkers one out, really hard. Chess, working out where the next moves are, multiple different worlds, so fun. I think it's the old adage, old bull, young bull. Like you get older and, it's more from the neck up and just being able to read the play and how things work in business. Like, again, I went to Sydney Tech. I didn't do business degree. I did sports science. But being in it for 20 years and being off the piss now for 8, I think this month, sober off the piss. And that gives you massive clarity. And then you get to use, I think, a lot more of your brain. Because my brain was just bathed in alcohol for 10 years. Let's not kid out, Xanax and cocaine and other things that I won't mention. But it was, and that's probably why I don't, I like a simple life too, because I was hanging from the chandeliers, Wolf of Wall Street, doing some of my philanthropic work, putting some of the dancers through college and what have you, mate, just doing what I could for the Australian public.
You're doing your civic duty, my friend.
I was. Thank you.
Good Samaritan.
That's Geoff, the philanthropist back in the day. But everything, like, if you're listening to this, Sam's a great example of someone who has that breakthrough success entrepreneur. I think you'll go on to do more than even you realise. Because I've been around and I see what it takes, and some people have just got it, but not many. Having it is that ability to, like, we'll talk about things and you you've got to trust the person, and we'll go back and forth. And as we've said before, one of us could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure both of us won't get the same thing wrong.
Yeah.
Right. So then, I think after I said, you just pulled the trigger because you went, yeah, that makes sense. Yep. You could be wrong. I could be wrong, but not both of us. We're not both going, and I think you were like, I'll hang my hat on that because that stacks, that tracks, that makes sense. That's the thing. Like, we don't want to get to the edge of the cliff and not jump. Like, we got to move. And that's what you do really well. You'll workshop it, sanity check it. Does that all stack? Yep. Okay. Boom. Bang. That's what you did with the value and what you do with everything. And that's what's fun. But it's that ability to, there's a great book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, Joe Dispenza. And that's really, I'm interested in that sort of stuff because back to your earlier point about those formative years as a child, how we react to things. I want to respond in time, not react. I don't want that internal trigger. Now, I've gotten infinitely better at not triggering externally so people realise. But I don't want to, internally.
Yeah. It was almost worse, right?
Worse.
The internal battle's worse.
Worse.
Yeah.
Horrible. Yeah. I just don't want to, no amount of money or anything. I just don't want to keep doing. But I'm learning. My little trick is I get up and I'll put my headphones on, like the noise cancelling, and I'll have them on for an hour and then I'll take them off. So I don't have like loud noises hammer me in the first hour. Interesting. Because it gets the revs up too much.
Yeah, I get you.
And I heard of Theo Von, he's another Rogan comic fella. He does that. You think he's got ADHD as well. He does that with the headphones.
He's funny. Yeah,
funny. That bloke, funny. Maybe he had Trump on that bloke. Like,
he did too, eh?
Theo Von.
He looks like he's from the swamplands. Like,
no, mate, he does. Yeah, he's got the mullet, everything. He's a weapon.
He's funny as.
Weapon. Like, he's just a knockabout bloke. And I'm not, there's a million ways to have commercial financial success, but I don't think there's a million ways to actually love your life. That's probably going to be the best quote I'll say today because I'm like, I've never said that before. I'm just sitting here thinking, because I was thinking about you. We thought about Theo, and then I'm just thinking about Rogan, who started a podcast just for shits and giggles because he was a comic. He didn't, I've never met the bloke, I never will, but I'm pretty sure he did not start a podcast 10 years ago to be the biggest podcaster in the world. He did it for shits. He's a comic.
Yeah.
He was the host of Fear Factor.
Yeah.
Like he's just a funny bloke having a good time smoking weed and I think fairly bright. But he wasn't like in the salt mines grinding. He was doing what he loved.
Yeah.
Right. So that's more the genre of what I like these days because it's just too brutal on me otherwise. You know, if it doesn't, there's a lot of cliches that we dismiss because they're cliches, but you know, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Well, it's true. It's just not that easy to, and probably you don't love what you do for 40 years.
Yeah. No chance.
So you got to, especially as an entrepreneur, you need to new challenges, new problems to solve, things like that, new people to meet.
Yeah.
Not just, you know, rinse, repeat for the sake of more money because it just eats away at you. And I think, but realizing, you know, what avatar are you? What sort of personality type are you? Are you sort of more the Rogan one or the work hard and grind until a certain point, working out what fits better for the individual? Yeah. Because there's certain aspects of our personality that I think whilst we can change a lot of them, some of them are deeply ingrained and it's what makes us, you know, who we are and brilliant in some ways. If we try to change them, it's disaster. We have to play to our strengths and you know, be competent in our weaknesses, but don't try and master them. Like play to your strengths. And I'm very creative, innovative, good at writing copy. So why would I want to go and become a forensic accountant or something, right? As an extreme example. Yeah. Like I'm interested in talking to lawyers, but I wouldn't want to be a lawyer. Yeah. I'd get bored as hell.
So lean into your strengths, focus on that side of things. And I guess if you're in business as well, replace the weaknesses.
Replace the weaknesses and remembering just like in any sport or like everything's evolving, a little kid learning to ride a bike's got training wheels and then they get the training wheels off. Business, right?
Yeah,
same thing.
Yeah.
Right, how do we learn best as well? And I think when it comes to performance, mate, well, I could speak for 5 days about this stuff because I think the modality of the way that we have been taught to learn, this is probably a little bit controversial, but something that does interest me, I think if you look at the way we are taught to learn skills is grossly flawed. Because our motor skill pathways, like everything's firing so quickly, like with a golf swing or how we walk or like when we walk, we're not thinking left leg, left knee, right knee, ankle, hip, knee, like we're just walking.
Yeah.
But every golfer on planet Earth is thinking about a million things over the ball. How can that be good? It can't because it's happening too fast. It's the sum of all parts. Right, and business is understanding it in the same way. Business is the sum of all the parts. Now, as a business grows, you've done this way better than I did. You were able to, long before I met you, you didn't have any issues delegating, but you knew how you were able to do it and not have the drop balls because there were systems and processes and whatnot. And one of the things to high performance and scaling a business is getting good at that. It is impossible to scale anything if you don't get good at that. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. You must get good at this. Yeah. Just like you must get better at your internal triggers and dialogue that we all have and learning how to like change. As Dispenza says, when you're about to cook your head, say change and go do something else just to interrupt the pattern. Yeah. The pattern behaviors that are holding us back. Now, you don't have a lot of them because you're shooting the lights out, but most people have a lot of pattern behaviors that were so subtly developed over a long time, we don't even know we got them. We don't even know we got them. They've been so subtle for decades. It's not like it happened one day. You know, I think I can get anxious. I love my parents, but I used to get anxious about things at times, I think because they were school teachers and that, Jeffrey, where are you? You got to be home at a certain time. And they didn't yell or anything, but I think it just subtly built. Man,
I think this is why like I always love going back to those root stories of where people come from as well, because it's funny you say that about myself, but we probably met and started working, I maybe like say 4 years into, I'm 6 years in now, so we're probably working together, knowing each other closely for about 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So the first 4 years, it's actually funny that you say that, man, because my upbringing and where I came from, both circle and family, there was so much I actually needed to rewrite within myself that I could see internally, I could see was fucked.
Wow.
Yeah, man. There was a lot there. Like, I probably wouldn't say a lot, but it was just like the things that I knew that were going to hold me back. I mean, even like the external piece of focusing on everyone else. You know what I mean? Because like I came from a family where like, and like nothing against my parents, there's a lot of really good things I had sort of come off the back of them as well, in my upbringing and everything, hard work being a massive part of it. But man, like specifically my mum, man, was always fixated on like someone doing better, like, or it's just like she always needed to make comments about things. So then like it negatively, you just got this negative connotation in your mind for anyone doing better than you. When in reality, like a lot of the time, especially in sport or in anything, or especially in business, right? If someone's doing better than you, they're probably doing something better than you, right? If they're doing better than you, they're doing something better than you, or maybe they've been around longer, but one or the other. And time is a very important piece in business as well. But man, there was actually a lot in those first couple of years that I did have to rewrite, that like were ingrained in me even from that upbringing and then soccer. And like there were negative things definitely in my mind. And I when I changed those, and it wasn't heaps because I had like the entrepreneurial side, I had the drive, the determination, all those pieces. But when I changed, which is what you're talking about, breaking those things that are decades old,
spot on.
They were the biggest shifts I ever had in my life. And so you've changed a lot of things for me from a further along piece that had a massive impact on what I've done. And then there was the pieces at the very start that from a mindset piece, I had to rewrite myself, you know what I mean? Like, and it took me a long time to learn it and to understand it. And man, we're all like, Australia is the country of tall poppy, right? Tall poppy syndrome. It's so prevalent here. And I think like alongside tall poppy, which is like having an issue with someone else doing better than you and cutting people down. Tall poppy, right? So the poppy that stands up, you cut them down to everyone else's level, for anyone that doesn't understand the term. And I think that when you understand your weaknesses in these things and then learn how to, it's almost like a code, right? Like when you learn how to rewrite that code,
spot on.
That's where the changes
now,
come.
Sorry to interrupt. What's super interesting here is that, so you're the first person that I've mentioned what I'm doing with my own decades. Now, this is one of the most important things in the podcast today. Here's a bloke, you, absolutely crushing it. And I've just said, you know, this is what I'm working on to try and change it. And you're like, you know what, that's what I did at the start. You know how rare that is? Like, but that is where the best, most successful people, that's what it looks like, right? You know, do the things they can't see for the results they can. I'll say it again. Do the things they can't see for the results they can. Now, no one can see your inner dialogue and what's going on between the ears, obviously.
I was thinking just as you said that.
Right? No one. But that's the difference maker. And it's so interesting. You're 14 years younger than me and you did it the better part of 6 years ago. I'm only doing it now. I'm only fully realising the importance of this and how I start my day. This sort of leads into gamification. Like your instant kind of default response to things is not necessarily the best. If it was a game and a video game we were playing, then we'd have to learn how to play the game. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to do with life, right? Because that internal angst, that kind of, you know, Buddhism talks about the middle path. I'm not a Buddhist, but there's some good stuff in it, like the middle path. That's what I'm aiming for, because anything too extreme either way gets us off kilter. I think if we get too be excited, but let's keep it in the middle, because it just, like, it's sort of equal and opposite, cause and effect. Goes up, goes down, goes up, middle. Like in Ferrari, no brakes, ADHD me sort of thing.
I still struggle with that 100%.
Mate, well. But I think, but that's that double-edged sword.
100%.
That's what I'm working on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? That's my number one priority. I'm going to get up. Literally, this is what I'm doing, because I fucking know how important it is. And I will not just default back into what I've done. Because I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm just not doing that. Because I don't give a fuck what it looks like or like the optics. Oh, GJ, you're back. I was never gone. We're just working out what I'm doing. But that's a gift to not, I just, you know, don't care about that. This internal stuff, which, why I'm so interested in this is that the success you've had it's huge. And this is what you actually worked out. You knew you had to get that sorted. Like dig the well before you need the water. Get that sorted. ahead of time.
Yeah.
That's critical. As I said it before, like money makes you more of what you are. Success makes you more of what you are. So you haven't got your shit together before you have it, you're gone.
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah.
And now you look at your journey when you do that, you do it ahead of time, gold. Totally, it's night and day.
I love that,
because
man.
the internal, but the challenge is like, I'm not here talking in riddles. Riddle me this, riddle me that, mindful, blah, 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 centered, blah, 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 buy my book. No, these are just two blokes talking real stuff about what really needs to happen to have more external world success, if you will, like internal world, internal narrative, dialogue, stories in your head, all of which, by the way, like from birth to now, if my theory is if people don't get on top of this, life gets brutal because you think about brain neuroplasticity, neural pathways, the shitty ones get stronger if we keep using them. You do that for decades and decades, you bet you go end up in the loony bin.
Yeah.
But you interrupt that pattern, that internal stuff, and just like gamification, just like in a game, what would I need to do? Now, just on that, I've been testing this with horses, right?
Here we go.
Because I don't really love...
Am I your first human subject?
And mate, you're a lot more than that. Don't worry about that. You're all over it. But the horses, like, I don't love riding them enough to just, like, I'm more interested in them as horses.
Beings.
Yeah, beings.
Yeah.
And what I've observed with my, like, especially with the foal at the moment and what have you, the little baby, but that meditation, for those who've meditated, like you let your muscles hang. You're not tense anywhere. I believe that the body, in terms of high performance, I believe that the respiratory system is linked, directly correlated with the endocrine hormonal system, with neural pathways in the brain. Like they're not mutually exclusive. So if you are tense in your body, you'll start to breathe into your chest, which will stimulate the sympathetic nervous system, which will stimulate the fight or flight response, anxiety, cortisol. Now, most of society suffers some anxiety and stress. So maybe posture's a factor there in terms of high performance and how I'm feeling. Because if I'm feeling anxious and stressed, how can I perform at a high level? You can't. Now, I'll get the horse thing. We had a thunderstorm out there the other day, a couple of days ago, and I was just scratching one of the horses, just giving him a pat and a scratch in the paddock. But like literally like I was in a deep meditation. Now, I've done this with a bunch of horses now, and a bomb could go off, right? But because I don't react and I'm so still, the horse doesn't even blink.
Really?
I knew it would be that. Now, the hard thing, though, with this in terms of performance, really good horsemen and women, they don't know they do that. We talk about scanning the room and we talk about joining the dots entrepreneurship. You'll love this. I observed a couple of years ago that the best horse riders, they walked around life like they were lazy, depressed. Their posture, they looked like sloppy.
Yeah.
Because that's how they sit on a horse.
Really? So there's like,
but they don't know it, so they can't teach it.
Yeah, right.
They can't teach it. This is the thing. It's ships in the night. So the best at it, and they'll say, I don't do anything. I just, like Glenn Boss said, just relax. 3 Melbourne Cups. Just relax. I'm in the barriers. Jeffrey, I think just relax. If anything's part of tense on a horse, you bounce off. Now, what that means is you're learning how to actually just relax over a golf ball or with horses or whatever. It's not easy. So the best, it's actually really hard because it's the internal stuff, right? So the best, what I believe, what I coined the phrase working title like performance posture.
Yeah.
High performance posture, what is it? It's counterintuitive. What is aesthetic? Aesthetic posture is not athletic, right? Sort of societal posture is not performance.
Yeah.
It's like job interview posture, like chest out,
straight back,
shoulders back, tummy in.
Yeah.
You're going to bounce off every horse
Yep.
and shank the golf ball.
Yep.
That's not performance. Now, when you meditate, when you sit there, you let go. You let go. And now, in terms of conflict resolution, another thing I did with that, with the horsies, there's a family next door and they like doing burnouts, the kids. And when you cultivate that state of calm, and the Lebanese family, lovely people. They're just, teenage boys like doing burnouts. The old me, going back to BodyTrim and whatnot, it would have been heated, to say the least. Funnily enough, what I did, I've done this 4 times now. I just walk out there, shirts off sometimes, like just bowl out.
You're pretty jacked as well, man.
Yeah, I'm all right at the minute.
You're still pretty jacked, yeah.
Thanks, Sammy. You're a good man, very kind. But I'll potter across. You watch Conor McGregor get into the ring when he was at his best. Yeah. He's supple and soft.
He's so calm.
And he's like this, right? Tyson, when he used to just cave people's heads in, was like this because he was using the ground because he just lets his posture relax. Now, the energy we conserve and like my trigger avoidance internally when I do this, I can walk over to 10 young Lebanese fellas doing burnouts. I'm not being super nice. I just don't care. It's very different. If you go over there and raise your voice and mate, I'm like, it's like I'm meditating and that you look at interviews about Michael Jordan, they say, quote unquote, he was a mystic. He never thought about missing a shot. He couldn't understand. His brain couldn't process why. This is such the difference with high performance and everyone else. His brain literally, he could not understand why a human would think about missing the shot they're about to take.
Yeah.
He didn't, it was like the code didn't work.
Yeah.
That's high performance.
Why would you be thinking of anything other than they're going in the net?
And like with the burnout thing.
That's crazy.
So it's not about, like, the trouble is with this sort of these sort of topics, it's not one extreme or the other. It's not like everyone's amazing, love and light, do burnouts. No, burnout, cause and effect. But it's funny the response of the other person when you don't.
So what happened? You've walked into the
I've been out there 4 times. I said, mate, how much longer are you going to be on that motorbike? Well, they got motorbikes as well. He goes, I'm finishing up now. And he said, why? I said, because it does my fucking head in. And I looked at him and he goes, okay, no worries. And I went back inside. And then a few days later, burnouts. Know your value, know your worth, know your boundaries. Don't be a doormat. But the goal, this is the goal. Now, there will be times where we fail. You, everyone. That doesn't mean it doesn't work. It means we've got to keep practicing. Because I just think there's no coincidence and it's so profound that I've come in here today to talk to you and you just explained what you did 4, 5, 6 years ago in terms of sorting things out internally to then have the external success. That is, wow. The fact that, you're as successful as anyone right now in Australia, I believe the trajectory you're on, the things that you're doing, the way you think, blah, 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 and you did that. Like they say success leaves clues. There's a massive one. If we don't do that, we cannot keep compounding the success, the growth, the life. It implodes. That was me because I didn't do that. Now, not only did I not do that, but I was not cognizant of the fact that I had a lifetime of stuff building up already, right? From just all the different things that have happened in my life. Yeah. Now, I didn't have an overly traumatic childhood at all. I didn't have a traumatic childhood, fine childhood, no dramas, just stuff that builds. And if we don't know it, once a week you take the garbage, you take the trash out, we've got to learn how to do that with our head. Otherwise it just keeps building.
Yeah.
Then you get to 40, 50, 60, and if you haven't taken the trash out, that's why some people it just cooks their head. If we don't address it, the problem doesn't go away, it gets worse. But once we address it, it gets better. And then it's a game. Yeah. And that's what I'm seeing in you, because once you're not reacting with things and not making things and I'm probably saying this more about myself than anyone, but I'll give the next door neighbour example. The old me would be like, they're fucked. Why would you do it? No, they're not. They're not at all. The young boys. Yeah. It's not there's no absolutes.
Yeah.
Because that wastes your energy.
Yeah.
The energy credits forming a story of like that bullshit I'm exhausted by.
Yeah.
So for me, in answer to your question before as well, before we started the podcast, this is my number one priority. Not to master it and be perfect, never sort of need to tweak it, but that's my main focus because then everything else is so easy. What happens next is different. The people that come into our life is different. The horses, how I see with horses, and the horse is a mirror, as they say. Like an anxious, nervous person has an anxious, nervous horse.
Yeah.
When you take the time to understand how this works and how the breath and where you breathe into your belly or your chest or the tension in your body, that all has an effect on how you feel. And if you feel nervous and rattled, the horse feels it, and then there's a thunderbolt or this or that or a burnout and the horse jumps on you and problems.
Yeah.
But when you're in this state, it's like a bubble of calm around the horse as well. And they don't even move. It's like magic. but it's this.
That's crazy, eh?
But it's because, and I feel like the best people at things, because it's generally all they've done, they don't know otherwise to tell you to do it this way. Because a person with that lazy, relaxed posture, in the case of horse people, a lot of them, they're not gym heads.
Yeah.
So I was a gym head trying to ride a horse. Can you see the disaster?
Yeah,
You're gone. No chance.
Did you take pre-workout before you jumped on your first horse?
Mate. No. But like
The horse gets the jitters?
Oh. And it gets worse with horses because you infect them with the nerves and then you keep falling off and disasters. Everyone's fucked. The poor horse. But you did it. Now, you didn't mean to do it.
But it's literally your projection. Like, they project onto you what you've already projected onto them.
Right.
Yeah.
But also,
that's so interesting.
And even like next door with the neighbours, I'm not going over there to punch on.
Yeah.
I'm going over there to just be enough of a sort of disruptor to just turn the page.
Yeah.
And like, if we have to punch on, we can. No problems. I don't need to. But you're going to fucking stop your burnouts.
Yeah.
But what's powerful as well in a leader, like not raising your voice, being the calm in the chaos, especially like as an extreme example where things shit you like that and if you blow up, you could be punching on.
Yeah.
When you actually have zero trigger, the result on the other side's night and day.
Yeah.
People are like, it's powerful. You're not affected by it. And so my goal is to not be affected. Now it sounds like that takes away being human, but it doesn't. Like I think in the middle of it, like
retaining control.
Yes,
you know what I mean.
But if you stay in the middle and we have a laugh, but we don't have to go like to the extreme. And because when the extreme laugh and fun happens, then we feel flat.
Yeah,
it's like with goal setting. You set a massive goal and achieve it. Guess what? In breaking news tonight on Great Mysteries of the World, Sally Smith kicked the biggest goal ever 2 days later, flat as a pancake, because she's kicked the goal.
Yeah. And
that's me. Everyone does it. They set a big goal, they achieve it, then they're flat, then they're depressed. I'm a bit lost, bro, because you haven't got another goal, right? So that's the old cliche, journey, not the destination, because anyone who's achieved any destination, guess what? 3 days later, you're flat. Shit, what do I do now? Oh, off I go again. So it's understanding that. It's knowing, like doing things ahead of time, like you did, working at the internal stuff before the external stuff came.
Yeah.
Like with goal setting, cool. Know that. Doesn't mean it's bad, at all. It just means that you need something else afterwards.
I'm actually really curious about this. I've got say Saki Kabara that won the gold medal. She's a client for us as a buyer's agency. And I've got her lined up for a podcast as well. Now obviously we're recording this late 2024. Yeah. It's being dropped early 2025 and I'll be speaking to her early 2025 as well. So it's actually really interesting. I actually want to ask her that question of like, and it might be a little confronting, but in the essence of like, was there a massive come down after it? Obviously there probably would be to an extent, but like, how did it feel after that point as well? Because it's funny, man, like that really in the sporting world is the epitome, right? Other than winning, say, a World Cup in footy or something, winning a gold medal in pretty much every other code is the epitome of success. So it'll be interesting to kind of ask her and kind of reflect with her on that piece as well. Because it's funny, man, from a business side, I think the cool thing about what we can do is we can obviously, and again, it's a journey, not destination, but keep moving those goalpost side of things. But it's a funny thing because, like you were saying with the, like we were kind of joking about the car side of things, man, like one of the craziest things when I reflect on my story is I bought the Ferrari, the one that like you were like, no, you have to buy this car. And I went in and picked it up and I was waiting for a cancelled order on an SF90, which is the best Ferrari you can order, right? Right. And when I went and picked that Ferrari up, when I finally got it, just before I left, I said to him, when I shook his hand, I said, hey, don't forget, if you get that cancelled SF90 order, give me a call. I was literally picking up my dream car that I had dreamt from when I was 5 years old and picking a $750,000 car at 33. And I was still telling the dude, don't forget, when that cancelled order comes in,
there you go.
You let me know. You know what I mean? It's like, it was like, I literally, man, I hadn't even driven out of the fucking dealership.
That's right. There you go.
And I was already telling him to I was already looking for the next thing, you know? So it's...
We've got to keep moving, I think. You got to keep moving. Like and I think with the high achiever thing as well, even more so, but everyone, right, relative to their skill set, their vocation, their idiosyncrasies, we've got to keep moving. Otherwise we can just drift into the abyss, like spin. But and I think that's you seem to do that quite automatically.
I'll say one thing as well, like one final thing to wrap this up before we do move on. Man, I think being aware of it is already kind of like you're getting yourself past it to a lot of the point already, if that kind of makes sense. Because like ultimately I've embraced the fact, and like I've had a couple of, we've talked about this before, about like a couple of, you know, conversations with Morgs, my partner, around this side of things as well. Her asking me like, you know, when are you going to be happy? Like, and I'm like, I'm happy, but I keep setting goals and I still want to achieve shit. And I think like, it's not that that's the wrong thing to do with like telling the bloke. It's just like, okay, well, I'm just resetting my goals. You know what I mean? Like I've achieved one, just don't forget there's this one over here that I still want to achieve. And I think it depends. Like, and exactly what you're saying before, journey, not the destination. You still got to enjoy what it is and what you're doing. But I don't think there's anything wrong with resetting. And if anything, man, I think the biggest thing that I love that I personally do, and I think it's had a lot of success for me, is once I do hit a goal, I reset very quickly after it, or a lot of time before I've even hit it, because of the trajectory of how quickly I'm hitting, I'm resetting for the next one already. So I think there's different ways of taking it and looking at it. And I think who each person is as an individual will dictate how they need to play this game. And there's some people that'll get the Ferrari and be happy with it for 5 years before they do it. But we probably don't think on the same level at the same time, similar to you with like, bang, you know, getting bored of massive success almost immediately once you have it and moving forward.
Yeah,
so
once it was sort of just, once it was, I'd built something and it was just printing, but I'd be bored. And then I'd go and do dumb things.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I did it twice. Twice.
Yeah.
The dumbest smart person I know, me. Mate, that in that aspect, like, you know, what do you build a business for? To build an engine to print cash? Did it twice, got bored twice.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's extreme, but there's versions of it. You got to have things, because you can only spend so much money and you can only stay in so many awesome joints. And then it's a bit like, and after 10 years of doing it, you do get bored.
Can I ask you something though? Like, you had that mentor when you were 19 that you PT'd. Did you not look for a mentor at the time? Did you have a mentor? Like, that's something I actually was going to dive into later, but like, how did you blow it up twice? You know what I mean? Or like, not blow it up twice. And we're going to dive into the story. We're an hour and a half in where I want to dive into that story. But like, you know, from that's what's kept going on in my mind right now when we're thinking about this. Like, was there no one there, or did you not know that you should have looked for someone to help you make those decisions and keep you maybe more on your rails? And realizing what you had? Because it's like the old bird in the hand, two in the bush, right? You know what I mean? You had the bird in the hand.
Look, there were at each stage. They too were entrepreneurial types who thought, get rid of that, go do something else.
Okay.
So older blokes who had had a lot of success that sort of saw my abilities and thought, turn the page, go do something else that, you know, is, so that wasn't the world's best advice. But
I was just about to ask you, on reflection, were they maybe the wrong mentors with the wrong advice?
Yeah. But like, I couldn't have changed it anyway. Like, I didn't know. Like, I got diagnosed with ADHD when I was 40.
Yeah, right.
40. So I was flying blind.
Yeah.
And no offense to my parents, but they didn't even think it existed. Well, it fucking exists. Yeah. Now, it's not an excuse and it's not a crutch. But at least understanding the nuances and the things that why things happen and you feel a certain way. Like, why can I go down to Channel 7 and literally be talking shit with homeless people and like, Geoff, we're on in 10 seconds and then make $100,000 off an ad? I could do it in my sleep.
Yeah.
That's not normal.
No.
But neither's the other stuff, right? So that's the problem is, it's really important to reinforce for the listeners. And I'm not a superstar by any stretch, but if, you know, back in the day, you see me in Martin Place doing the TV every day and having a laugh and blah, blah, blah. There's the BodyTrim Geoff, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I can do that in my sleep, but there's a million things I can't, right? So we got to be careful that we don't, that's why we don't put anything on a pedestal, like cherry pick the bits that are applicable to you, that resonate, you know, the best learnings for you. But anyone who's really on camera as an example, like if someone's brilliant off the cuff on camera, they're not office or they hate it or they're bored, right? They're not going to be brilliant at both. The more brilliant you are there, the more like, you know, normally the best bean counters, accountants are nerds.
Yeah.
They're not
100%.
They're not charismatic comedic.
Yeah. So they're great on the back end,
That's
but they're
right.
terrible on the front.
Yeah, and if you try and flip it the other way, it's a disaster for everyone.
Yeah, I feel
Right? That the thing is, but so if we don't want to look too closely and copy a person too closely because we're all so different. But yeah, in my case, look, I got bored. Franchising was not really highest and best for me because it was boring in my 20s. Getting it started, getting it to that point.
Yeah.
No one's fault, but look, I just think life. I needed to go through all of that to have the clarity I've got now about why things happen.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I don't. Do I regret? Not really. I don't ever. I wish I hadn't really, because when I'm not in my head, like this is the thing for everyone. If I'm not in my head, life's perfect.
Yeah.
This is the thing. Now we need money to keep a roof over our head and do stuff and buy stuff and whatnot. But in terms of the feeling of I'm good when I'm not in my head. Now, to me, it's mastering that. And how do I get better at getting out of it when I start to go in it or overthinking something or whatever? I'm finding that, the more relaxed my posture is and, start the morning a certain way, like with my noise-cancelling headphones on, it gives me more buffer for when things happen during the day. I've got enough buffer to not spill over.
Yeah.
Right? And I feel, and then I get more done because I don't blow the engine. And I think like when you look at it like that, you get way more done over the day, but you're not at a frantic pace. You're just in third gear.
And that's just understanding how you tick now.
How you tick, yeah. And for me,
everyone is so different.
Yeah.
So you can't just follow someone's game plan of, this is exactly what I do, or Jeffy does his exact thing. Everyone's different.
We're all different. And the thing is as well, like in your case, like with the, the stuff that you've achieved, like you're very good at, in real time, reading the play and making things happen, right? Now that's what works for you. But some people are a lot of people aren't as naturally gifted at that, but if they're good at sort of disciplining themselves to do what they got to do, but their blueprint might not be having a podcast and doing X, Y, Z. It's their version.
Yeah.
Take the bits from people you admire and respect and learn from, and apply to your version, your operating system for life.
Yeah.
Right. And for me, like, the one thing I know about life is that we don't know. Like I don't know where the fuck we came from and how. We don't, and anyone who absolutely thinks they do, I question that. So, like I'm trying. I think the more I gamify it and make the best of it and take the learnings each day, what else can we do?
Yeah.
And like I'm single because I had a huge amount of lovely girlfriends and I was engaged and whatnot. But guess what? After 18 months, I get bored. Join the dots. Like if someone can't, we'll get onto my drinking and whatnot, I'm sure, but like I quit alcohol because I didn't want to go my whole life trying to prove I could have 2 drinks. Who cares? You can't. Get rid of it. Choose a better problem to solve. Yeah. Bin it. Like relationships, so many lovely partners, but the same pattern kept happening. I just get bored. I get bored of that same repetition. So, I float around single and I don't get bored. So just play to what works for you.
Yeah.
Like don't just do what everyone is meant to do. In terms of relationships, like 1 out of 10 born to be married, 1 out of 10 never to get married, and the 8 in the middle do your best. I'm just the one never to get married. And the 1 out of 10 is dead set, like Andrew at Vision, born to get married. Yeah. Married, 4 kids, still married, champion at it, loves it.
Yeah.
Just wanted to get married and have kids. Yeah. So, but that, again, different.
Everyone's wired different. It's as simple as that, eh?
And people, when they realise that, because if you try and copy someone that's wired different to you, which most people are, it can be a disaster because they're not you. And that's really the key with, generally, there's a reason billionaires are eccentric geniuses and whatnot. They're not that cookie cutter type. They're out of the box thinkers. They're eccentric. Yeah. But also there's, that's the double-edged sword. Like that's what innovates. But it doesn't mean it's easy to live with or whatever, because you get an idea and next minute you're excited and it's not regimented like most people are used to.
And most people's relationships, like thriving relationships can be. Yeah, here we go.
Because I think in like the old days, like you go back to Nikola Tesla and what, like he was like, I guess, an inventor. But really, if you're an entrepreneur, innovator, you're inventing business concepts. And when you get a concept that's fresh and has got legs, well, you're not just going to drop tools and then go and socialise for 4 hours, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
You're going to hyper-focus on that stuff.
Bloody oath you do, and you couldn't think of anything worse. You'd hate the idea, there's no way I'm going to that.
Yeah.
That's what everybody does who's like what we're talking about. That's the difference. The concept of, because to hatch an idea or work, that makes us hyper-present, brings us to life. We get a feeling of task completion. We feel successful. We're winning. We're working something out. Versus going to an event we're meant to go to. Oh, hi, mate. How you been? What's been happening? How's life? I want to cut myself because I'm like literally lip service 101, stocking filler, pat on the back.
And
hi.
Whereas you got this thing in the
over
back.
here because I don't care how your day is, but I don't. And no one does, but that doesn't mean it's negative. It's just true. I just I often now say to people when they're about to say, hi, how are you? I go, hello, good, thanks.
Before they've even said
just cut the first bit out. Let's just turn the page.
Let's save the breath.
Hello, good, thanks.
Oh, mate. That's classic.
And straight into them. Let's just fast track the bullshit.
Oh, mate.
Right, but that's the reality. Doesn't mean we can't laugh and have it, but like we get if there was a graph of how much time people spent in that fluffy conversation, it equates to zero other than battery drain. Over here, battery charge. It's like, I could, that's what we do. But that's our lane. That's when we thrive. We're producing and relative to the person's vocation, individual skill set. But that stuff there is gold. Having to drop tools and go, but I struggled with that with relationships because it's not conducive to give and take. And I get it, but I'm not conducive to that. So it's sort of like just knowing who you are. And 100%. All my exes are great, good friends, but just not to get married forever, me. That's all. So knowing that about yourself, like playing to your strengths, who you are on and off the field. Like off-field habits govern on-field performance. If you're, having benders all the time, you can't be good on the field or whatever it is, So the more, and owning that, realising that. And if you had a bad run of luck, well, it's not luck, it's choices, cause and effect. Like the bad run of luck, problem is with luck, when people think someone's lucky or unlucky, the problem is what they're seeing is the effect of the cause after the fact. So the causal event way back here, a year or 2 years or whatever, just doing certain things, daily actions, etc. The causal factors here culminated in an effect way down the road, and people go, oh, he's lucky or unlucky because of that effect. It's an effect. That's just a byproduct. It's like a caravan getting pulled behind a car. Like that's what caused it way back there, and all these things. But what it presents as luck or unluck, no, it's not. A bad run of luck. There's something you're missing with pattern behaviour. How you're going about things, triggering. Whatever. Like that. But you learn that. If people learn that, okay, let's just go back a bit here. What's happened? What's transpired? What that leads to that leads to that. It leads to luck or unluck. But if people learnt that skill, they'd be able to self-diagnose. What's happened back there. 100%. Self-diagnose. Because the other thing about a lot of people like to ask a lot of opinions. Problem is everyone's got one and they're not you. So you can see the disaster and they're not wired like you. They're not built like you. They've got different strengths and weaknesses. It doesn't mean it's not wise to seek counsel and guidance and advice, but off all your mates is not wise because they're all different and they may have their own agendas or whatever. If you want to shoot for the stars and your mates don't think you should, it's probably because they haven't. So if you don't know what's driving that comment from others, it can confuse you. Because everyone's got, again, those past events and stories that equate to their belief now, today.
I feel you, mate. I feel you. Man, probably one of the biggest things, I'm gonna take this in a different direction right here, Please. But one of the things I wanted to say is like when I kind of listen to a lot of that stuff, you're kind of talking about like different lessons or learnings, all these sorts of things. And the way that I look at it, I think we've had a chat about this before, is the only thing that is a genuine loss is if you don't learn from something, right? So that's the only thing. Because if you the only way you have a loss is if you don't learn anything from it. But if you take learnings, lessons, all the rest of it from it, it might be a fucking expensive lesson. I look at myself getting burnt by a buyer's agent when I was 26, 10 grand. It was a fucking expensive lesson. I was making 70 grand a year, 60 grand after tax. 10 grand was a lot of money. It was one of the best lessons I ever learned in my life. So I love that, man. You're kind of going a lot with it there. But mate, what I want to do is like now really run through the story of like, because obviously, man, we've got a huge amount of gold with what we've gone through right there. What I want to do is kind of run through, because I think a lot of lessons will come from how you went through different things in business and how it grew as well. From a childhood perspective, are there any lessons you'd say you would have learnt from upbringing, parents, or anything you think had an influence on even the man that like at 19 you're getting, mentored or had got some advice from this fella, the business owner, Bert, when before you got to him, do you think there was anything there, or what do you think looking back was like formulative pieces that even made you cohesive to that information from Bert then turning you into who you were? Because there had to be something different there, because man, you're outside the norm. Like most people I speak to, I even look at myself, and it's like, this is just like, I'm not trying to stereotype, right? But I look at a lot of people that have done really well or have like that mindset of wanting to do well, even if they haven't like fully got there yet. So often it's never a single or a firstborn. It's typically a second or a thirdborn. They've typically got someone that's a parent that's like maybe a bit of an entrepreneur. So to put it in perspective, my mum was a teacher,
right?
But my dad was a mechanic by trade, then a copper. Within 18 months, he was one of the youngest detectives ever in Sydney.
Wow.
That was in the 70s, 80s when obviously it was crazy. Then he went out and bought a farm, rebuilt the feed mill and like built his own mill because he's a mechanic, and then built his, it wasn't big, but like he had that bit of an entrepreneurial sort of spirit. And like, I don't know, like, there's just different lessons I sort of picked up there, even just watching them. And if anything, if I look back, I saw it like, when I look back now, my old boy had the ability, but then never really did that much with it. The business was never huge, right? Like, I think, anyway. And then I look at a lot of people that kind of come from those same cloth of people trying to achieve things. They typically weren't where you've come from. So like, was there anything in there that you think was really formulative for yourself as a young'un coming through, pre-meeting Bert at 19?
I'm just trying to think.
Were you poor?
No, I weren't poor. We had a house, owned a house, and it was like middle class, just or whatever. I don't even know what middle class is, but school teacher and a school principal. Yeah, like paid off the mortgage, and I had a holiday house they had and whatnot, and Dad had a boat, and so it was comfortable. Yeah, it was comfortable, but it was like that. Neither of them really loved what they did at that point,
and that's even more of an anomaly. Like full middle class, comfortable. You know what I mean? So not like there was money pressures, but then also not like there was an abundance either. You know what I mean? Like there's something here that I just feel like is like, I don't know exactly what it is, but
probably back then I thought, well, mate, probably how do I get girls too? Maybe build businesses, make lots of money, and turns out that worked real well back in the day, So again, that comes back to like how your self-esteem, how you look at yourself, and how your self-worth, and like most young men are low self-esteem, insecure, and like I got into bodybuilding and gym, and all that stuff just to, when you're young, you think, well, you get muscles and you're lean and you look good and then you'll feel good. And to a point you do. Yeah. It's better than feeling, being fat and feeling shit, right? So I'm not saying it's not good, but there's just more to it.
What made you build the gym at home at 15 years old?
That's a good, I think I started weights. Why did I want to start?
Because I did the same thing. Yeah, my old boy was a bodybuilder when he was younger. Yeah. And I got into the gym at like 14 because he had all the old Samson gear in the gym. Remember the old Samson, the old blue stuff?
Yeah. I'm just trying to think why I wanted to. I think maybe I got bullied at school in year 7, like a year 11 student. I think that was a couple of dramas. Wasn't major.
Yeah, but you just wanted to.
I thought, I'll just start training, put on a bit of muscle, sort of feel better and a bit stronger, and play footy and blah blah blah. That's confidence and then you start, young girls start to notice you more. And you go, this works. Hang on, we're onto something here. Might start training a bit more. So you just kept going because it seems to be, this is good. I'm going good here. Here we go. I'll do more of that, blah, blah, blah. So I just sort of fell into it. And I liked the way it made me feel. I think, you train and you get all the endorphins and that felt good. And
100%.
And I think that's why I did the sports science degree. I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do, but I did the HSC and got into uni, did sports science, and then that was more learning about the body and how it moves and works. And so it was more I did that just because I was interested in it.
Yeah.
And then but there was no strategy. It was just no idea what I was going to do. I hadn't thought that far.
Interesting.
I think when I did sports science at UNSW, I was more excited about, well, not more excited, but I was excited that there was dancing course there on the same campus.
I don't know you're going to say.
Yeah. So that was pretty much the deal maker, right? But this is the other thing with people who have success.
Yeah.
Like they take themselves too serious and they forget what actually went on 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? They don't even necessarily mean to mislead. They just forget. But if I cast my mind back, and again, this is that thing about having buffer and calm. Like if you haven't got that buffer and calm in your mind, you can't think back. Like I'm chatting to you and I just literally remembered back to that moment way back when in terms of what was the catalyst to get me excited about that course. I still remember going to UNSW at Oatley campus and having a look around, young Geoff, 17 odd or whatever, and I'm like, oh, dance. I'm like, excuse me, is there a dance? Oh, how good's this? All these young chicks and I'm like 18 and dancers. Like, well, that's what an 18-year-old bloke does.
Yeah.
Problem is the 48-year-old bloke doesn't let on that was what an 18-year-old bloke does. Right. And then the audience is like, oh, well, you've got to be really serious. No, you don't. Bullshit. He's either forgot or he's bullshitting. Yeah. You're 18.
Yeah.
If you're not thinking about stuff like that, regardless of your sexuality, if you like blokes, male dancers. If you like chicks, that's simple.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, problem society now, if you say anything, oh, hang on, no. Just relax, everyone. We don't have to turn everything into and that's why I just go, okay, if you like blokes, chase the blokes. Yeah. If you like the chicks, them at the dancing. Yeah. When you're 18, you're not 48. You've been on planet Earth 18 years. You haven't got that much of that wisdom and that seniority to have those more senior opinions. You're like, okay, this looks all right. A 75 TER, I hate school, but I can get that. There's chicks here dancing, beautiful. I'll go do that course. Yeah. But I had no idea what I was going to do with it. It wasn't like it was a big strategy to do vision. Yeah. No. What actually happened was I did it. Then I went, there's no money in this. That was stupid.
In exercise physiology, is that what it was? Exercise science.
Yeah. Well, that was probably the start of me actually going, what's going on here? Because there's all these degrees that there's not jobs for.
And you don't make money.
What the hell's going on here?
And they get paid
Nothing.
shit. Yeah.
And then, of course, you got mum and dad. Mum more so, like, because she get up, a bit OCD like me and mark all the books and do all the extra hours, but she's not getting paid. And occasionally I remember when I had my P's, I might go and pick her up from school or whatever, and she'd be still working, everyone else is gone or what. I remember she had car trouble. I still remember that actually. And I went and everyone's gone and she's still there working but getting paid the same amount. So that didn't add up. Yeah. Right, and then you go to uni and sports science. I'm like, well, there's no sports scientists. Like, where at the AIS, what is there? One job. And then they're just spewing out sports scientists. Yeah. To where? Nowhere. So that doesn't work. So again, forming my worldview was the sum of all things. Yeah. Observing, mum and dad. Mum worked really hard but got the same amount as worked longer hours but not paid for that. And Dad was sort of over it by getting towards the end. He was about to retire, but the good stuff I got out of them was like the holidays they had and just structuring the year because they were teachers. They had to the terms and whatnot. But I didn't apply any of that in my 20s and 30s. I just went full throttle, to my detriment, and went one extreme to the other. Yeah. But I think, I realised that there wasn't a lot of jobs in sports science, and then I got a job on the gym floor. And then I started personal training. And then after about 3 months, I'm like, well, this is fucking boring because I'm like counting reps. 15, 14, good Sally, very good. 12, 11.
Is there a Sally in your past? You always mention Sally.
I don't know. It's just a general name, Sally or
an Aussie,
Steve.
An Aussie Jeff, Aussie Sally.
Just pops in.
Okay.
Yeah. No ex-flames or anything, no. But, so that was what made me think, well, hang on, let's just team up, Andrew. I'll do the sales marketing in the front end, you do the back end, and we'll get our own setup, and off we went. Now, the reason that happened
and that's where Vision was born.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we were forced into it. So what happened with Vision, again, generally things that, well, not generally, that's not true, but often something that has a lot of success, it was forced. Like nothing forces change, like necessity. We were forced to do it because Healthland had come into Australia and then they, I think, went belly up and Fitness First acquired them and they were like, guys, just a heads up, we're going to take all the personal training in-house but you can stay, but if any of your staff leave, you can't replace them and you can't hire any new staff. I'm like, oh, cheers. So basically you're fucked. Yeah. Right. So me being me, and Andrew, to his credit to this day, like he's still the founder and running the CEO
Managing
of the
director
franchise network. Yeah.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he loves it. Loves
Yeah,
it. And I just said to him, well, fuck this, we'll do our own. He's like, what? And he still says to this day at events, he goes, well, there'd be none of this without Geoff because I couldn't even see how the hell we'd do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, mate, we'll be sweet. You just bash out your spreadsheets because back then I had no interest in systems and processes because I hadn't seen the mess if you didn't have them. I was just good at making it rain, getting the people, let's go, rock and roll, we're opening it. Come on, open day, Barbie, Dad, you're on the Barbie, let's go, 100 new clients. Send the editor flowers at the leader to get a great story in the thing, boom, did that, bang. My brain's just, I'll send some flowers to the editor, say, come on down, weight loss challenge. Sue Wardrobe was the name, lost best before and after ever, went into the full page editorial in the leader. We got 100 people at the open day, new clients, boom, off we went, whooshka. Yeah. We just like building it, jump off the cliff, build a plane on the way down. That was when I thrived, that one. We'll be right. I can jump off, we build. Now, so that's got its shortcomings as well. But yeah, it was that sort of, Andrew, I remember he was like, oh, geez, can we do this? I'm like, 100% we can. I said, you're like a workaholic. And I used, we joke around. Mate, with you on the spreadsheets and doing your thing and me with the punters, we're home, and we were. Right, but the thing that kind of broke us was we were too young to appreciate each other's strengths.
Yeah, right.
So all jokes aside, like I don't, the main issue, the main challenge was that, all the stuff that came so easily to me, well, we've spoken about it, Andrew and I, years later, like he sort of felt like he had to do all the hard, shitty work jobs at the time, and I got to do all the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Now, years later, he realised that I didn't even want to do the stuff you were doing. That's not fun to me.
And he probably wasn't capable of it.
No, not at all. No, the worst at that. At that. Like he'd be like small talk, and that he'd be like, I'm wasting time. He's just like, he was an accountant by trade beforehand.
Which is funny because when you actually look at it, because you and I both know in terms of this.
That's right.
Thing, what you were doing is actually significant. 100x less people could do what you did compared to what he did.
Spot on.
Not to take anything away from what he was doing either, but like that skill of being able to bring people in is to
make it rain, to just water into wine sort of thing. Just we've got a local paper, we'll do this. Just like all these things that most people just don't see. Yeah. And then from nothing to boom.
Yeah.
Right. But the trap for the person who has got those gifts is others, in this case, my partner, like they don't see it at the time. So you don't value it in yourself. So then you don't value yourself as much because others seemingly don't. The same thing sort of happened at BodyTrim as well, because all that stuff, you can't be taught it. You're just naturally good at it if you apply yourself, and then it's great for business.
Yeah.
But it's like really critical work in that business. It's not play. It's not fun. It's work.
Yeah.
Like unfortunately, I think because growing up, we kind of equate work to being hard. When you're awesome at something, it's anything. If it's hard, you're not awesome at it. It's effortless. And that's what flow that's what flow is. When you're really in your lane, playing to your strengths, it's anything but hard.
Yeah.
And that should be kind of the North Star, the litmus test, really. Like, and of course you got to do other stuff, but you don't, just because you love it and you're really good at something, doesn't mean it's not work. And if it's dollar producing, it's probably best use of your time. So just not forgetting that when you're good at things. Like TV hosts are good at it and they get paid for it. Doesn't mean it's not work. Just or whatever it is, like a golf pro who's really good, it's still work because they're, you can have I feel like you should be able to enjoy what your life and make some money. That's it's as simple as that. Like enjoy your life, make some money, not hate your life, make some money.
Yeah. Can I ask you something? What do you think of the idea of you should, what your passion is, you should create your career, or like a lot of the time what I see is like people are very good at something, become passionate at that, or just even if it's something that's might not be that sexy, but if you're extremely good at something, learn how to enjoy that process of being, because you're extremely good at it, you know what I mean? The monetization ability of something that you're extremely good at, as opposed to something that might be you might be passionate about, but there's no niche for it, or there's or it's a saturated market or whatever. You know what I mean? What are your thoughts around that?
Got lots of thoughts.
Here we go.
And I've got lots of thoughts, but I don't know if I've got a lot of answers. Right? So I try and take myself out of it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, try and learn myself what could be better for myself. So yeah, I think, well, yours is a good example of, you've found something that you're very, very good at, that's lucrative, that everyone benefits from. That's how you make money.
Yeah.
And then you have a few hobbies on the side. I haven't had that. So I'm like, when you were saying that, I'm thinking, that to me as a model, a blueprint, clearly that's the best.
Yeah.
Captain Obvious.
Yeah. But in one little way, I'm also a little, I wouldn't say, I don't like using the word lucky, but it's lucky in the sense of something I'm extremely good at is also extremely lucrative and I also fucking love it. You know what I mean? So I've got the trifecta. So in a way, if there's one little thing of being lucky, it's having that culmination of all those things.
Yeah, I think that would be the one bit of luck for all of that to culminate.
One thing I will say though, is it took me 15 years to become a fucking beast.
Well, there you go.
So there's no luck in that piece.
Then, right?
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
You loved it at the start.
Yeah. It's true. Became good at it.
Right. So there's,
And there was periods where I was shit at it. At the start, I've always done well. I never lost money on a deal, but I was nowhere near the level that I obviously am now. At the start compared to 5, 10, 15 years in. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it just came into my head as you were talking about it.
Yeah. No, that's a good example of, it's sort of now it's like that, but at the start you had no idea. You're at the dentist and you got the magazine and you subscribed and learned.
Yeah.
But you saw you were interested in I think you were interested in the learning. You loved the learning about it. So whatever the hell that sort of mixing pot of factors were, that's gold.
Yeah.
Because it interested you. You were interested in learning about it.
Yeah.
And in doing that, you got good at it over time and here you are. But at the start, it's having an interest. And I think that's key. And turning things that you're good at and trying to monetize, I think you've got to have stuff that outside of business that you're just doing because, I'm going hang out with the horses and do stuff. I'm not monetizing anything there. That's why I got a lot of thoughts. I don't have any answers because everyone's different there as well. I'm trying to find a framework, a blueprint that works for me. Maybe it's I do things short term, make money, do another thing solve a problem, take it to market, do it again. Mate, I don't know. Maybe it's just working with a select handful of clients. Maybe it's a bit of both. I've never been copy paste Groundhog Day. Forever. But see, I wasn't stimulated. This is again, it's not good or bad. I was just never that stimulated about learning about property. But you know what? That's stupid. It's stupid. But I'll also say I always thought I was, making money. I'd come up with an idea and I'd make 10 times the money way faster. Yeah. And then I just thought I'll buy a joint for 10 mil and fucking whatever. That was always my way.
Yeah.
Instead of accumulating and living lean, that didn't interest me. Back now that doesn't mean it's right. Here's a bloke who's gone bust twice. Join the dots, folks. So the shit that is sustainable over time didn't interest me.
I think the difference, if I can weigh in a little on that now, is because, especially if we rewind 20 years, when was BodyTrim, which would have been your biggest producer? What year did?
Yeah, that was 2006 to 2014.
Okay, so and your biggest year, the 40 miller, what year was that?
2012.
Okay, so I feel like the actual, I wouldn't say accessibility, but it becoming so prominent in Australia was actually kind of around then to now, if 2012, if anything really. I think Australia became a lot more aware of it when Sydney doubled between 2013 to 2017 and podcasts started to come out and YouTube and podcasts and all that started to overtake magazines. Because I read my first magazine in 2009, right? And podcasts didn't really start coming out properly until 2015, 2016. So I look at it and you say looking back, it was fucking idiocy not to park some shit in assets on the way through. And I think if you'd had the right mentor, someone should have given you that advice. But realistically, how accessible or how easy it is to gain a bit of knowledge around property. And again, if you're building serious wealth, to park some of it in an asset that's probably going to go up over time, undoubtedly. I think that's really cool. But I think it's like when I look at it and we look back, it's mad in hindsight to look at it and go, yeah, sweet, we should have done it. But like if it wasn't something that was as talked about, especially as like the last 5-10 years, and which 2012 falls outside of that. You know what I mean? And that's where I kind of look at. Again, it's these lessons, right? The lessons.
You know what? I think you've just made me realise something.
Yep.
I feel bad saying it, but because my parents were school teachers, what I'm realising now is that in those, say in my 20s or late teens, whatever, because it was school teachers, like it's sort of, you go into roles that you know about versus I'll just learn. So now I'm like, I don't know how to Google, learn. So to your point, boom, you just learn.
Yeah.
Right, boom. Design a house, do this, do that, learn.
Yeah.
I was the opposite of that because you come out of school and you are tested on a syllabus of blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Whereas in life, there's no syllabus in life. It's everywhere all the time. Yeah. But in life, in school, there's terms and syllabuses and you're tested on this syllabus and blah, blah, blah. Right, been that, right, but I carried that. So like property, I'm not really sure. I don't know much about it. I'm sure that was a massive mooring line back in the day. Because I did a bloody sports science degree and had no idea about property, so why would I want to do, right? So I probably parked it as a result of that subconsciously, but now I look back retrospectively and I'm like, it's exactly what I did. Whereas now I'm like, I'll just work it out, never rode a horse, well, I'll start. These people are not demigods, they're people, and they just start by starting. Like, and that there and under, but having the patience and awareness to work out what's going on, like not need to get something done in 4 minutes to feel better about yourself. Because I find all the magic and all the big opportunities and like sustainable things happen subtly. You're not jamming things into place. They'll flow, not force. But I think, my 20s, because the folks, school teachers, they didn't know they were doing it, and they didn't do it. It's just the system. Like we go through a system, and if the system is strengthened if both a parent, in your case your mum, and mine mum and dad, school teacher, so the system's going to be strengthened if it's coming home as well.
Can I give you a story on this?
Please.
You just made me realise something that I never really thought about. Man, when we first entered Perth, WA, right? So we got into the market about 12 months before anyone else did, when it really, like, that was a real crazy buying period, right? And we were very big. This is going to, you're going to see where I go with this by the end of it. We were always very big into granny flats, building granny flats. We get 8, 9, 10% yields on these sorts of things. They did really, really well. And I remember when we went in there, in WA, there was no limit to how many bedrooms you could fit in a granny, right? In Queensland, New South Wales, at the time, it was always capped at 2 beds. So every design was typically a 60 to 70 square meter, 2 bed, 1 bath. Like, it was just designed like that, right? And that was what the norm was. When we entered WA, sorry, this is going on a weird turn, but you'll see where I'm going with it. You see where I'm going with it. When we entered WA, you could build up to 70 squares and have 3 beds, okay? And it was legal. So you could build to 70 squares in Queensland, but you couldn't do 3 beds. So when we went into WA and you could do the 3 beds, I really wanted to bring a 3-bedder granny flat to market, because I knew if I could do that, I could get an extra $100 a week for rent, right? And then I was like, okay, well, what if I could make it a 3x2 and actually add an ensuite? You add that, start adding $150 a week onto a rent for something that's costing like $200,000. You all of a sudden, like, realistically should have been able to get $500 plus a week, getting a massive return, right? Like unheard of returns. Every builder that I went to, every architect I went to, every surveyor, planner, fucking everyone you can think of that designs this shit said it's not possible. These are the guys that went and did 3, 5, for fucking however long at school, university, all the rest of it, planning this shit. I dropped out of high school a week into year 11 because I was like, fuck this workload. I'm not doing this. Fresh 16, I'm not doing this. It took me 6 months to design it, but I came up with a 3x2 design that even when I designed it and then their in-house draftsman drew it all up, this is quite a big business that I was working with in WA, the second largest builder in WA, and we were their biggest client because of the amount of grannies we built for clients. They said to me, this isn't going to work. They designed it and they looked at it and they go, even after I fucking gave them the whole thing, and they're like, this isn't going to work. It's too tight. It's this, it's that. And I'm like, no, because they'd fully drawn it up in the whatever they call the plans to draw it properly. I was like, let's just tweak these couple of things. And they're like, nah, it's not going to work. We don't like it. We really strongly advise against doing it. And they advise all my clients to not actually build it because they're like, we don't think it's going to rent. We showed it to property managers, and property managers were like, oh, I'm not sure. I'm not that sure. Lo and behold, The average 2x1 granny flats used to rent for $400 to $440 a week, depending on the suburb. My very first 3x2 granny that I had finished rented for $580 a week in a day.
Wow.
In a day.
Wow.
And I was so disappointed that I hadn't pushed my clients and backed myself because, and where I'm going with this is like, that for me was just balls to the floor, like just putting balls on the line and going, here are these people with all these degrees. And you combine all the people and all the degrees and all the years of experience, you're probably talking 50 degrees each. You're probably talking a few hundred years experience each. But they're looking at the fucking, what are they, the peg hole. And they're just looking at, no, it's only this peg that can go into the hole. No, it's no. Fuck the nose.
That's right.
There's a reason why they're making $100,000 a year and they'll never make any more. And no disrespect to people that are in that, because ultimately, like, and for any, all the entrepreneurs listening to this and wanting to be entrepreneurs, having that different mindset is a reason why. And there's a reason why this is called the Top 1% podcast. You're not trying to be like the 99% of people. You're trying to be like the top 1.0001%. And thinking outside the box like that, and not just blatantly going after shit, but where like when you trust yourself, you back yourself, and something makes complete sense to you, sometimes you just got to roll the dice.
That's right.
And where this like really came back to me was something I never have actually thought about this until you said it, was these people with their degrees, they think that it is the only way to do things. And there's so many ways to do things. Okay, fuck, it's just, I got a square peg, I got a round hole. Okay, give me a fucking jigsaw. I'm going to cut this thing out and fit it in.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's good. I was
so this is like, for the listeners, again, top 1%. And it's not, and again, I know we've said this, it's not about right or wrong and better than or less than or anything. It's just, but it's interesting that, what you do, and you're crushing it, with everything that you do, like it's what every high performer does. So like we've got to take the bits from it. If someone's trying to break through and have more success and blah, 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 this is what happens.
Yeah.
Like it's like, and I'll give my example is the thing with the golf thing. Like my brain, and maybe ignorance is not bliss, but sometimes I think it is to myself, because if something doesn't add up to me, I can't just make it add up and go, whatever. It still doesn't add up.
Yeah.
It still doesn't and it's the same thing with with the granny flats there. You saw the opportunity, you took it. When I did BodyTrim, well, actually, exactly.
And I sat there on the couch for 6 months every night in COVID after I'd finished work, and Morgs would be sitting next to me. What are you doing? And I'm just trying to make it work.
See?
I was trying to design it, you know what I mean? Sorry, I'll leave you.
And you crushed it, right? But like when we did Vision, everyone thought that wouldn't work because the big gyms, well, that was the whole reason it did work.
Yeah.
And then BodyTrim, people are like, that won't work. People want a pill. People want a pill or a bar or whatever. But I knew that if we went into the market with education, back then it was DVDs, but coaching, education, blah, 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 me on the DVDs, build a database to a couple of 100,000 and then drop protein bars and shakes in there. But once we lead with education and not pills and potions and whatnot, we'll have a huge audience, which we did, and we crushed it. But everyone's like, that can't work. No one wants DVDs. You can't eat a DVD. I still remember you can't eat a DVD. Can't eat DVDs.
Someone say that to you?
Yeah.
Oh, mate. Did you
Give them
slap
stuff they can eat.
Did you slap them?
Nah, I'm just like, whatever. I just, no, mate. It just, but the thing was, there was backing your strategy, but you got to make sure you got one. Like you had a strategy in your mind or on paper or both as to why there was a gap in the market and that opportunity was real. I did the same thing with BodyTrim. I backed myself that if most people who try to lose weight, they've done like 5 diets, they're sick of the yo-yo. So I understood the landscape intimately in so much detail. Like it wasn't their first rodeo, like first diet. They've been Jenny Craig Weight Watchers, Shore Slim, this, that, whatever. So I wanted to go after the obese market, that of which there are many, not the elite athlete in that case, but I backed the model because of what I saw. Like you backed the model with the granny flats because you saw the rental opportunity, the increased earnings, the yield from that. So it was and not listening to the naysayers, but also but it's one thing not to listen to them, but like it's more, you got to poke holes or try and poke holes in your own strategy to sanity check yourself.
For sure.
But if you're trying to get sanity checked from someone who can't see what you can, it's a trap, because that's not a sanity, that's just a distraction. So you got to back yourself, and does that track? So I think it's good, like with these podcasts, to explain the logic behind things, because like my life's different to everyone else's, but the logic, there's learnings in the logic, right? So people can self-diagnose or self-check. So my version of that with the golf thing was that the golf equipment is like 100 times better than it was, but the best golf pros in the world can barely hit a fairway. That's interesting to me. Well, yeah, they can hit fairways, but they spray them. They're off the map.
Yeah.
The dispersion compared to in the 60s and 70s is way worse, right? So that was interesting to me, that ball doesn't move.
Yeah.
The golf, you get a handicap if you're an amateur golfer. The handicap system back in the 80s, you had to put in all your cards, 80s, 90s. I wasn't playing in the 80s, in the 90s. And I was a junior golfer in the 90s, folks, by the way. Or maybe I started in 89. Who am I kidding? But regardless, back then, all your cards, all your competition cards went in.
Yep.
And then your handicap was derived from all your cards. Now 20 rounds of golf and they only take your best 8 out of the 20.
Oh, wow.
And so your handicap, so if someone says, oh, I'm off, my handicap's 2. So back then it would be off 6 or 7.
Yeah, right.
Right? So there's more people playing golf than ever. The technology's 100 times better. And there's still not as many scratch golfers as there were back then when the handicap was harder. So the handicap's got softer. Like my mate who's a golf pro, when that system came in, he was off scratch. 3 days later, he's off +5 because they softened that handicap system. Right. So it's not even real. So that tells me, hang on, technology, soft handicap, what the hell's going on? There's a disconnect here.
Yeah.
So then like you with the granny flats, doesn't mean we're wrong. It's just that other people can't see it.
Yeah.
Why is everyone getting like stress fractures in their lower back? I can't be it's not a dream, it's real.
Yeah.
It's just that I see a pattern.
Yeah.
Posture, lumbar spine, blah, blah, blah. Is there a place for a golf thing? Like it's what you did with the granny flats. Like the problem's not just because others can't see it doesn't mean it's not real.
Yeah, 100%.
But then if you ask others who can't see it, then you'll think it's not real. So you got to be really careful who you pull into the, hey, what do you think about this? Because they probably won't think much at all.
Hence why I told clients not to do it. When all the feedback was negative, I was like, don't do it until I finished a couple and see what they actually come out like. So it's funny, man. It's funny.
Exactly. Because especially when we're young as well. But having those things in place to self-diagnose or sanity check yourself so you don't get sort of but misleading info.
Yeah.
But also, you need proof to yourself that it still tracks and you're not kidding yourself.
Yep. I'm with you. So, mate, vision. Smack that, launch that, did really well initially. Why did you exit when you exited? And how old were you? So you started that in 21 with your mate, at 21 with your mate?
21, yeah. Yep. And I was 28 when I got out.
How many locations did you launch in?
We only had 2.
Okay.
We just started franchising. We've done the first one.
So when you went to the franchise model, that's what you didn't enjoy?
Oh, mate, look, to be honest, I just fell into that business.
Okay.
I was young. I was 21. I was very just making things happen.
Yep.
Next minute we've got 20 staff. Next minute we've got 500 people in a weight loss comp. Next minute we've got 500 people at a gala dinner. Next minute we're opening.
Holy shit.
That was just what I did, really.
Yeah.
And just didn't, but.
So you kind of got stuck in the weeds a little bit in the business rather than trying to grow it and scale it during that point in time.
Yeah. And it was just, we look, partnerships are not easy either. Like we had great synergies, but it's easy to sort of, if you're getting frustrated with each other, I just wasn't enjoying it.
Yeah.
My thing is like, I'd rather, if I don't enjoy it, I don't want to do it. Yep. Like if this is doing my head in, mate, if it means that much to you, you do it. I don't care. Like now that's to my detriment. I just, it's tricky. Yeah, I just don't want to turn up every day and have just shit I don't enjoy.
Yeah.
So I went and did something else. But that's on me. That's no one else's fault. That's just how I'm built. And I try and moderate that over time and realize you can't just keep bailing and doing you got to stay the course.
Yeah.
But we've all got version of that. Like I've had dizzying heights, but, as you said before, the highs and lows are probably can't get one without the other, or, the way that you see opportunities, but then you get bored. So it's working at trying to self-manage that internal stuff, so stay the course more. But I think, it's the same. Yeah, the same with BodyTrim. It was for 5 or 6 years. It was great, and then start to.
Can I ask you real quick before we jump on to then BodyTrim, moving to that? What do you reckon the biggest learnings or takeaways from Vision was? Even looking back now, that maybe you were
a million of them. Understanding the business model, like where are the customers, who are the customers, where are they? Understanding, who are the staff, where are they? Like learning how to hire people, learning how to get customers into the business, learning how to leverage marketing, media with like open days or whatever way back then to get eyeballs, to make noise, to get people in. Then once you're getting them in the door, then you're systemising the processes so that there's consistency and it's not more holes in a pair of fishnets and whatnot. Where we hired people, like being personal trainers, if they lived too far away, they get too tired and they wouldn't work out. So they, it worked if they're within like 10 Ks of the gym, gold. If not, really hard because they're working really early in the morning and then nights, and then they're off in the middle of the day. It wasn't conducive to people had a lot of travel. It wasn't conducive to a lot of young female trainers back then. They'd get really tired, and if their boyfriend was like not in fitness and they'd never see their partner and blah, blah, blah. It was very hard on personal relationships that way because you're working really early and working late, but you're the middle of the day off.
Yeah.
So it was kind of who's going to fit that mold. Is it younger or is it older? Is it both? Is it male? Is it female? What's the ratio of male to female? So developing a good hiring model, like I was big on as well, like the hiring model, the site location model, the training model, weights, cardio, like different workouts. We actually systemized all that into a software program so that would automate the exercise prescription so that the trainer couldn't come up with their own ideas.
Couldn't fuck it up.
Yeah, basically, mate, exactly. And there'd be someone there that's clearly quite overweight and they're doing tricep extensions or something, or like really heavy squats or something so no, you're not allowed to think. Just the computer that can do that will spit it out, boom, away we go. Done. And we did the same thing with food and whatnot, just to make it, like as I say, systemize the process, humanize the experience. The trainers were there to create the experience, and the system would, the exercise system, and then all they have to do was deliver that. And we got that idea a bit from Les Mills because Andrew was a Les Mills instructor, and they sort of pre-choreographed group exercise. So that gave us the idea to pre-choreograph one-on-one.
Yeah.
For that reason, right, to get the consistency with the pump classes, whatever, same with one-on-one.
Yeah.
Andrew was doing the Les Mills stuff, so we had exposure to that, and that we put that into Vision. There's some of the key learnings. What else? Don't sleep with your staff. Probably it took me a few businesses to learn that one. That wasn't my best, but mate. What else?
That's the rule there, guys. Number one.
Mate, give that a miss when you're 24 or something. But look. So what else did I learn? Clean out the gutters. You got a flood when it pisses down.
I think we've taken the key learnings from Vision. No, that's good. In that time frame, then, so you've sold out of that at 27, 28.
Oh, I can't remember.
Did you sell out of it? Yeah, you got bought out the other side. Okay, sweet. And man, moving past that, what was the time frame from there to starting BodyTrim? Was BodyTrim the next venture, or was there something in between?
Mate, I had a brief stint in network marketing.
Okay, I thought you were about to say netball then.
No. I didn't play network marketing. I just fell into that.
Okay.
And then from I did that for about a year or 18 months, and then I'd seen a program in America. Bill Phillips had a thing called Body for Life. Okay. And it was a sort of a weight loss fitness thing, and had a massive exit over there. Big pharma bought him out, I think, and I'd seen what he was doing, and then we were doing his Body for Life challenge at Vision. That's right. And I was I forget a lot of the shit I've done because you're busy, you're doing a lot, right? So back then, I was the Australasian ambassador spokesperson for Body for Life.
Yep.
But I hadn't met this Bill Phillips bloke. He was older than me, but we did the challenge and we ordered a lot of their supplements, and I met the Australian distributor, so I got more involved, and I'd seen the growth of that business with supplements and weight loss and kind of like a bodybuilder diet for the masses, like protein and veggies.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. And I thought, well, I want to strip this back more, get rid of the gym and the weights and just food and walking for the fatties.
Yeah.
For like obese market, like, et cetera. So, and that's what they need. They don't need to be, they just need,
steps
metabolic steps, get your steps up 10,000 steps a day, 3 meals, 3 snacks.
Right. Yeah.
No strenuous exercise for a month, because I understood the audience and I knew most of them didn't want to go to the gym, and that wasn't the secret anyway, because the harder you train, hungrier you get, the more you eat. So kind of, I guess the answer to your question, all the stuff I'd observed and learned at Vision, I guess over time gave me the idea to look into doing BodyTrim.
Yep.
Because to the obese market, the fact that obese people don't want to go to the gym, the fact that you don't need to go to the gym to not be obese, like it's food and walking, basically, incidental movement and walking. So it kind of lined up for a weight loss program, because I just felt like I knew what obese people hated and what they liked, and where the danger zone, and what they eat at 9 p.m. when they might eat salad all day and then smash the Tim Tams at 9 p.m. Right, the danger zone, as I called it, said with love affectionately, but I knew it so well that it lent itself to a system.
Yep.
Because I knew that they want to have a free day once a week. And I'd worked all the, again, scanning different programs, my clients, Vision, what was going on. Biggest Loser was getting a lot of pushback because they were getting hammered and putting the weight back on, so that the market was ready for something that was more sustainable, fast and sustainable. You can lose weight fast, but it's also sustainable, because we've got a carb detox phase, a weight loss phase, and a maintenance phase. So we were it met the audience, the market where it was at the time. And then over time we did the supplements and whatnot, and that pumped and what have you. And but it really, the BodyTrim stuff came out of what I'd observed at Vision.
Yeah. Would you say as well, potentially, I guess you said it was more around dietary side rather than the training side. I was going to ask about the Les Mills kind of, because obviously you had, because it was the DVDs, right? Like you were saying before, right? So it was kind of, was much, do you reckon, born out of that side, or was more out of the vision and just knowing what absolutely worked?
No, it was more out of, then I was doing a bit of speaking and stuff around weight loss, and I thought I'll just do all this on DVD, and then we can just one to many, just pump them out and what have you. So it was wasn't Les Mills for BodyTrim, because that was just exercise. There was no food. It was like group exercise, but it was more, but also, again, I think, I was looking at some of the other big players like South Beach Diet. I think I just wanted to do something new. Yeah. Like I didn't love being a personal trainer, because it was kind of very repetitive. Yep. And you sort of got a lot of time to just talk about not much. So that cooked my head.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because you got all these hours of just counting the reps and how are you and how's your weekend? And hey, Sally, how's your week? Sally, Steve, how's your weekend? Yeah, I don't absolutely not care, but like you got to bung it on a bit more, because it's a personal trainer. Like, so over time I found that, just really boring, right? So, but then systemizing personal training to franchise, and that was exciting. Yep. But I think what drove us apart was we didn't appreciate each other, Andrew and myself. And
each other's skill sets, yeah.
He was sort of, if he was here, he'd say the exact same thing. Yeah. I gave him a hard time about things. He gave me, and I said, I couldn't be fucked. But enough. Now, smart, no, whatever. It is what it is. Like, mate, my life is not a case study in smart decisions. Yeah. Right? That's not.
But it's a case study of lessons, man. Lessons,
you know what I mean? But they haven't all been smart at all, and I'm sure I'll make some more dumb ones, but just hopefully a lot less and a lot more measured over time in light of past experiences and events. Like, what's the smart thing to do? It might still be dumb, but smarter than another option. Like, there's no poster boy, in my opinion, for absolute success or failure. We're all a mix of both. I think the hard thing is that it's our brains, or mine definitely, but we sort of compartmentalize to our detriment. Like, there's no absolute good or bad, or, everyone's a mix. And we've got to do some stuff that we're not that interested in. Of course, we're not, it's not a fantasy land, but the ratio's got to be right. And for me personally, like, I like horses, but I wouldn't want to be around horses only. That's all I do every day. Or I wouldn't want to play golf every day. I wouldn't want to do business every day, but that's kind of what I was doing. Now I look back in hindsight. because you just do too much of any one thing, you get bored. So you need that mix, that ratio of those different things, which I think for the entrepreneurial mind keeps you stimulated, and you can. So it's like spinning plates, and you can dive in over here and do X, Y, Z, and then over here and then back there and da 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 da. Now, for a lot of people, that's a head cooker, but probably for us, like that brings you to life and you're calm because it's not like so slow.
Yeah.
It's like
it's where you can perform, right? It's your zone. It's your zone.
Yeah, but I'd also say, like, you know, it's all, there's no, from a certain point of view, you know, I could easily argue that it's easier to not be like this and have a job and just go through life because you're not up and down and trying to find things that you just get a job and you chip away and blah, blah, blah. But mate, there's no amount of money in the world that could make me be that person.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean wanting to is not the factor. It's just you're not built like that.
Yeah.
You know, so there's, again, it's making the best of kind of what you've got.
Can I touch on that for 1 second
Please.
as well? Because I think one of the big things with that, with what you just said is like, and the whole point of this podcast is top 1%. Like 99% of people will sit in that average job 9 to 5 for 40, 50 years, go on a pension or maybe just have a little bit or whatever. You know, realistically, that's where 99% of people sit. Being in that top 1%, it's like, it's seeing that as a fucking gross thing. You know what I mean? Saying you never want to touch. You never want to be sitting in that percentage of people that are okay to sit there in a job. And I think like, if you're feeling okay with that, like you need to try and find, you know what I mean? Like you need to be, you're not pushing yourself hard enough. If you're listening to this podcast and you want to achieve more, you're not pushing hard enough. It's as simple as that. And so often like, and I found this when I was stuck working on the farm, and I was doing that for income to service the portfolio. So the portfolio was what I was building on the side. And there was a time where I was making 50, 60 grand a year from income from the job, but I was making $500,000 a year on the portfolio.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So I was pushing that other avenue. I knew that was going to be my vehicle, but I feel like if people don't have that side hustle, you know, but you're wanting to do something different or create something different, I always knew I was going to be wealthy. I always knew I was going to have a Ferrari. I didn't know how the fuck I was going to do it. I thought first it was going to be soccer and then it would be property, and then obviously business has had a big weigh in on my wealth creation as well. But I think like, if you're wanting to, or if like the mindset is there that you want to do it, it's like, well, how do you have to be comfortable with the fact that that is the mundane, and you need to start be looking for different things, like actively looking for how do you go and monetize something else or push something else or create something else like that, rather than just sitting in this mundane 9 to 5, which you and I would fucking shoot ourselves by the end of one day of doing it.
And that's why now, like years ago, 5, 6 years ago, I said hobbies, purpose, love, like, you need a hobby outside of work. They're just things that I've had to do to keep me interested in life. Life. Like the overarching life piece.
Yeah.
Not work, home, all of it.
Yeah.
Like everything's connected, inextricably linked. Like, you know, one thing leads into the next thing. If you're doing something that's mundane, monotonous, boring, well, you're going to carry mundane, monotonous, boring into the next thing, which is not self-optimization.
No.
Everything affects everything. Like, so I think realizing that, you know, and you got to play to your strengths in and around that. You know, what makes you feel certain ways, and, you know, doing more of that.
Can I ask you, with BodyTrim, if we jump back to BodyTrim, which obviously was the pinnacle, right, of what you kind of did, right? That was the pinnacle of what you built. You built that over a 6-year window?
2007, 2007, 7, 8 years. Yeah.
7, 8 years. Okay. Man, what I'd love to know really is out of that period as well, like what was the most successful sort of scale points or like triggers that changed, you know, how you went from when you started that to then, like, when was the 7th, 8th? Your biggest year was 2012, which would have been 6 years in, right? You 40 million in 2012. 40 mil. We're talking like almost 13 years ago from recording now, 12, 13 years ago. So 40 mil 13 years ago was very different to 40 mil today. You know what I mean? Like,
I guess. Yeah, of course.
Like realistically, man, you apply inflation, especially the last few years we've had on it as well. Man, we're probably talking like a 60 mil rev in today's dollars. Man, what were the biggest things? You might want me to cut this for asking this question, but also what was the profit margin on that if you don't mind? I don't know the size and scale of the organisation.
Yeah, mate, we weren't that profitable because we were rolling out, we were scaling. There's a lot of, we were scaling really quickly and bringing out new products. And
you got a rough number?
Well, 20%.
Okay. So you're still talking an 8-figure, like you're still talking 10 million, close to pretty well 10 million a year profit, which is massive. 8-figure entrepreneurs, huge. What were the biggest things you think that got you to that point?
Well, my partner in the Alex, he was very good at, he'd done some stuff with his brother and had a similar cosmeceutical business. So he was more back office engineer type.
Yeah.
So he, again, what got us there, he kind of knew how to get, like what the company needed to look like to facilitate the scale. He'd done it before.
Okay.
And he was more of an engineer. He wasn't front of house. He wasn't people facing but he was good in that engineering type mindset, and putting people in place and blah, blah, blah. So that helped us sort of not be the bottleneck and the constraint. I stayed in my lane, which was more product development and sales marketing, sort of copywriting and what have you. And really, I think what was we got the advertising right, like understanding. We knew how to buy media, the right price and right places, right price. The copy that I'd worked out how to learn, I'd learned how to write and do on the TV. That was instrumental.
How'd you learn that?
Fucked if I know. Turns out I could do it.
You're just good at it.
Mate, I'm sitting here thinking, fucking hell, the amount of shit I've done.
Yeah.
Like, the amount of people I've made filthy rich is ridiculous, just from shit that I've been able to do, like, automatically.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think about it at the time. You look back, you go, bloody hell. So in answer to your copyright question, who knows?
Okay.
My brain somehow could just write ads.
Yeah.
Sitting on the toilet, laying in bed, advertising copy, headlines, boom. Pain rescue, problem solution, human behavior psychology, scarcity, FOMO, that, pain points.
Yep.
And I somehow knew to just overcome objections before they think of them. How did I know that? I don't know. No idea I knew that.
Did your brain just turned it over, worked it?
My brain just, so like all the sales stuff that's taught I think is hopeless because people aren't even, is.
Yeah.
It's just Band-Aids, symptoms. Now, if you got to learn how to, like, the art of the negotiation, well, you fucked it already way back there because if they're negotiating hard, they don't trust you. So that's not the problem. It's a Band-Aid, same as golf. Same. Right, the problem is you rocked up, as an example, like looking like you've been dragged out of a bush and you smelled of alcohol like 3 months ago. Now you got issues with negotiating and price because they don't trust you from back there.
Yeah.
You don't need Jedi mind tricks and negotiation. You need to turn up on time and be sharp.
Yeah.
People don't realise that. And so with the advertising stuff, I just somehow knew that, or worked out very quickly that if I could put into the copy the different struggles people were having, the pain points, the rescue, explaining enough that this can actually work. It's speaking to the individual.
Yeah.
If they don't like the gym, they want to lose weight, blah, blah, blah. Like the more I could speak to that individual and overcome their fears and objections before they think of them, and that's when people go, that's me, that's me, that's me too, I'm on. Like the 3 of those, that's me, that's me. Free day, that's me, boom. I just somehow knew to do it and it pumped.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the lessons are in that. It was just that for whatever, I understood weight loss because I was in the fitness industry and I was a bodybuilder, so I had huge exposure like you with property, you know what properties to buy for your clients because you got 1 million of them yourself and you've been doing it for so long. Same thing.
Yeah.
I knew a lot about my sports science degree, but then I was also bodybuilding and whatnot, so I knew a lot about metabolism and blah, 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 and overweight people struggling in the gym and feeling self-conscious and blah, 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 and so you wrap all that into a new message.
Yeah.
Speaking to that audience.
And so do you reckon that was your best part of scale was actually your ability to deliver ads and content that hammered that?
Mate,
you know what I mean? That brought people in and it sounds like they're almost already sold from the copy that you'd already produced.
Yeah, if I had to look at what's the one thing that you keep repeating that worked.
Yeah.
I made it rain.
Yeah. Right.
Every time.
Yeah.
Fast, way too much.
Yeah.
I'd just come up with ideas, place the concept for the product. I did another business called Medical Weight Loss Institute, which went ballistic after BodyTrim. And then I got hammered by a current affair and that hammered me because it was medical weight loss and some people weren't losing weight and they grew so fast that the back office was a shit fight. Okay. It's not the back office's fault. If anyone, it's my fault because it grew too fast. My fault.
Yeah.
Not the back office, not anyone else. But my skill set is just being able to speak to that audience, working out really knowing who I'm talking to and what do they struggle with, what do they love, what do they hate, what are their struggles and fears, what brings them to light, like speaking to that.
Yeah.
And then that's what makes it explode. Yeah.
Definitely.
And the problem with that, though, is if you haven't got all your ducks in, or especially in a medical space or whatnot, you get hammered, and rightly so. Doesn't mean that you're trying to do the wrong thing. It just means that if people are paying significant amount for weight loss and they feel like they're not losing weight, they're going to hammer you. And fair enough.
Yeah, for sure.
But again, you got to take your medicine, cause and effect. If it's not watertight, with like, and then simple things like people can get upset, like, oh, you know, the doctor didn't call on time. So we had like telemedicine model.
Yep.
And
how big is your team for that? How big is your team for BodyTrim? What'd you get that to?
100 plus, 100 and
What was the medical one?
probably 50 odd.
Still big.
Maybe more.
That's big.
Maybe more. Yeah, it went ballistic. Problem was, my skills in making it rain and making things explode got better and better and better.
Yeah.
But I didn't realise I had a blind spot with the back office and my, not realising what's going on there. I was just a bit sort of in my lane, tunnel vision, not realising the problem.
What made you wrap up BodyTrim?
Partnership breakdown.
Okay.
Yeah, I won't get into too much of that.
I thought BodyTrim was the one that blew up with the bullshit with the pill and stuff, but that was the medical one. Sorry. The BodyTrim
was a partnership breakdown.
Okay.
And
with who you did that, who you ran that with?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then 6, 8, I had to do something afterwards, and so I went and did the medical weight loss thing. Yeah. But both ended up in a mess, and that's why now also, again, that ability, and that's what it's tricky for someone like myself because my skill set, I can see where something's headed and where an opportunity is, but then you need a whole lot of other people to help execute it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be deep in that. So therefore, you see, like it's navigating that.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
what I was saying before about the internal stuff and like, calm and all that stuff about buffer and how we respond and don't react, and because I'm just not prepared to dive in and keep making the same mistakes.
Yeah.
I just can't do it. I haven't got any juice left in the tank. Because I know if it's brutal force to get there, well, you never get there anyway. So you're going nowhere. So that doesn't work. But you don't know that when you're 20. You think I'll just rip in, and that's what you do, and that's perfect at 20.
Yep.
48, that's not perfect because you know it's a dead end.
Yeah, I get you.
So you got to find the combo, like your combo, the trifecta.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
You got to. That's the key. And if you just dive in out of scarcity or fear or whatever, well, it's a trap. Because if you haven't got that, if you haven't got it lined up like that, it's never going to deliver what you want because it's not that. I think that's the key genius in what you've done with that.
No, I appreciate that, man. And so that's what you're at the moment, I guess, trying to find your feet in again of like what that next piece is for yourself as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and not, mate, no labels, not defined by anything. I'm really happy to not, I'm exploring. The golf thing will probably launch next year. I might write this book on sort of performance posture and as well. And I still do a bit of coaching and speaking, consulting, but I'm not interested in scaling that up any. It's just me anyway.
So much time.
What am I doing that for?
Yeah.
So, productizing things is good because it's obviously leveraged and whatever. So we'll see where the road takes me. The good news is that, at 48, you've been around the block a few times, so you know where the gold is not. You know what, doesn't work, and so as long as you stay true to that.
I was going to wrap up with a couple of final questions. One of my biggest ones that I wanted to ask was like, what are your biggest learnings and takeaways from the whole journey if you look at the whole thing? But it sounds like, and just to steal 180 your mouth that you just said, it's knowing what doesn't work, right? But like that's something that you obviously learned from experience and time and humbling experiences as well, right? Like what else would you throw in there, or like your biggest learnings, takeaways across the whole journey?
Well, this sort of what's going on internally with people, I think, is really interesting to me. Obviously, the whole journey. Well, I think the big learnings for people is like if you're passionate about something and you focus on it, we're going to learn about it, and then you'll be able to teach it and or monetize it, which is what you've done with property and I did with fitness and weight loss. So you got to be interested in it. The old 10,000 hours, like every professional was an amateur, et cetera, like repetition's the mother of skill. You can't, we're all shit at the start. Embrace being shit if you're interested in it. Having things outside of work. I remember one of my trainers at Vision back in the day was always saying, mate, you need a hobby, GJ, you need a hobby. like, because I just didn't have that. And if you don't have a hobby and you're building businesses, well, then you generally end up on the piss or whatever because you haven't got anything else to do.
Yeah.
And it can be a lonely road, but it's not a lonely road if you got mates at golf or something. Like the amount of time we waste having benders when we're young because we don't have anything else going on.
Yeah.
Well, if you add that up, it's a lot because you're a write-off the next day anyway. So but again, it's, when you're young, fair enough, whatever. But now I know that road doesn't go anywhere good, so I've binned that. And you just keep binning the stuff that doesn't work and learning stuff that does and keep moving forward and more about yourself. And I'm interested in how, that stuff about like not trauma as a child, but just experiences and how that can make how you go about life internally. Like what gives you, do you feel anxious? Are you relaxed? Like all that sort of stuff. And how do you carry that into the next meeting and how do you respond or react or how does that make other people feel? All of that equates to where the road goes for you. But it's the thing I find most interesting about what you said, somehow 6 years ago you knew that you had to work stuff out inside you first. That's so interesting to me because I've only just worked, like I've only really stopped in the last sort of few months to actually have these realize I was always in a hurry to do stuff. Like, to be honest, I don't even really love riding horses. I just like animals, hanging out with them. And I like making a horse do stuff, I'm not into it all.
Yeah, right.
So that, and a lot of people who are into horses, that's kind of what they do. So that's not bad or right or wrong or anything. It's just, it's not me. So just exploring where that road goes. I don't know where it's going to go. And being okay with that. Like same with the golf thing. I definitely, if something, but staying in your wheelhouse a bit, like having made so many products and stuff, it's easy for me to mock up samples and I've got all the contacts. And if I do strike gold and it can be idiot proof and you can sell 1 million units and life's good. Like that's not hard because I've done it. I know exactly all the moving parts, just like you with property. But it's still got to pass the green light, traffic light, stage gates. It's got to line up and can't be a Hail Mary and it's got to be easily demonstrable so people can do it.
Actually use it, have the results.
Yeah, because whenever you're doing a scale like a sort of a volume play with something like that, most people are a bit lazy. Most people are a bit victim-y. Sounds terrible, but it's true. Most people don't want to take ownership of the mistakes in their life. Most people don't really want to give up the piss even though they know deep down they should if they're blackout drinkers or, loose. So that's most – now that sounds terribly depressing and it should be because that is not acceptable. That's the issue and that's why – sometimes in life you get older and your circle gets a lot smaller because it's a choice every day. I could be a victim. I could be the biggest fucking victim you've ever seen. It's a choice. Yeah. The events in my life haven't changed. Yeah. My outlook on them have. Yeah. Right, so what can I do now? What can I do, not can't? What can I do now? Into the future. Take the learnings from the past. I don't drag the past in here. That's a big difference. Like learn from back there. Don't drag it in. Woe is me. Oh, like a lot of people do.
Yeah, 100%.
Learn from it, don't become it.
Formulative, right? Like it either makes you or breaks you with stuff like that as well. So, I mean, I think it's, dude, there's so much in there to, digest.
And that's the top 1%. Like that's the thing. Like we can all have moments when a bit of a pity party, but we've got to snap out of it. Yeah. I'm sure there's a wonderful formula there somewhere. Like it's how fast do you snap out of that negativity that would culminate in success. I'm guaranteed top 1% a lot faster. Bottom 1%, ridiculously slow. Everyone in the middle, slower. Yeah. Right? So it's the ability to reset. Circuit breaker when I'm thinking, that's not gonna get me there. And that to me, to the best of my knowledge and practice and whatever, it's just practice. Yeah. Practicing overriding your natural default to just do what you've always done if you want a different result, obviously. And that's the practice, the work that you did years ago, that's gold. And you do that and you start to say, hang on, this is a whole other way. I don't have to be 1,000,000 miles an hour and I can still get as much done. I don't have to blow up. I don't have like all these things. I don't have to do this. I have a choice. I can dive into the drama or not. I can become the drama or not. Someone cuts me off in traffic, no dramas, all good. Or someone gets out and caves their head in. That's the same thing happened, different effect, different 100%. Result.
I get you.
Different outcome.
Yeah.
So, but for me personally now, like how we start the day and how aware we are of this is critical because if I don't have enough buffer at the start, I can't get through the whole day. Yeah. Doesn't mean I'll blow up externally, but I won't feel as good internally and then my brain's not as good. I can't sort of use it optimally. So again, it's the sum of all parts and knowing what makes you.
You have to understand yourself, right? I think that's the biggest thing. Understand yourself, play to your strengths, eliminate the weaknesses as much as you can, and then keep building it from there.
Yeah, and build that team around you that complement your weaknesses, as everyone says and knows, and away you go. And creating pathways for others in an organisation, so there's something in it for them, like you do really well.
100%.
Everyone wins, sum of all parts.
Mate, I've got a few final ones for you.
Away.
What was the best piece of advice you ever received from a coach or a mentor? Young 19-year-old Jeffy? Anyone else? Anything else?
Mate, probably Nick Moratis, actually. He passed away now, Nick. He was a great mentor. I trained his sons, Stephen and Paul, at Vision way back. But Nick, he owned Moratis Produce out there at Homebush, and he was amazing. His big advice was, Jeffrey, don't ever be afraid of competition. Because we were going to buy some gyms together before we did the Vision Studio. We were going to buy the health lands before fitness first came in. Yeah. And he was like, don't be afraid of competition. If they want to do that, we'll do. It was just his, he was just very calm. He just had a presence about him, and he was like, don't be afraid of competition. When I got into fruit and veg, I started with a wheelbarrow. Now I think he started with one wheelbarrow himself. And then at that stage, his business was turning over $1 million a day.
Holy shit. A day?
A day.
That's a lot of fruit and veg. That's a lot of apples. A lot of Granny Smiths.
Yeah, well, bloody oath it is. Well, Moratis is massive. They're like the main fruit supplier to Coles and Woolies. And
yeah, right.
Yeah, vertically integrated. And they got their own fruit stores and whatnot. And
a day.
Back
That's
then.
Massive.
Yeah. And he mate, he lived in the same house until he died at Dover Heights, like for however long, humble.
Yeah.
Like, and he won the Melbourne Cup. He had Might and Power, the horse.
No way.
Yeah, he won the Melbourne Cup and the Caulfield Cup, and he sold a horse exceeding itself for $22 million.
Jesus.
To an Arab sheikh.
How long ago was that?
That was back circa 2010 or something, I think.
Huge money.
Might and Power that won the Melbourne Cup, and yeah, he'd sort of seen it all, and he just.
So don't be afraid of competition.
Don't be afraid of competition.
Be afraid of competition.
He'd explain, he sort of shared where he came from, where he was today. He didn't change him. He was polite, courteous. Yeah, it was not there. But anyone who met Nick Moratis would say, like, he was, he's a dying breed, unfortunately.
Yeah, right.
Just humble and, What else? Hit me with some more.
If you could pass on one piece of advice to the next generation, especially the top 1%, people coming through aiming for that top 1%. We've run through, there's so much gold in what we've unpacked today, right? But if there was one piece of advice, someone coming through any industry, sport, entrepreneur, anything, what would that one piece be?
Fail forward, fail small, fail often, and learn. I'd say that's probably fail forward. What else? Success leaves clues. So be observant.
Mm-hmm.
Look at past patterns and trends to see where the industry is going moving forward. Next question.
I love it. This is the final one. What's the most consistent character trait you've witnessed in all the top 1% people you've ever met?
Exactly what you've described today. I can think of half a dozen that are that top 1% making hugely successful, exactly the same. Just that relentless desire to work stuff out, improve things, keep learning, roll the dice, try this, try that. Just no rules, just we'll work it out. Like, not that, you can't do that with the granite. Bullshit, I'll work it out. Boom, granny flats, Perth, boom, next minute, right? Yeah. So they're just rule breakers. They're disruptors. They're disruptors, rule breakers. They don't give a fuck about the fact that everyone says that can't work. That doesn't even register. It's like if that person who's top 1% actually, like you with the granny flats, right? Like you couldn't care less what everyone's irrelevant. It's like, okay, that'll work. Cool. It's just blocked out.
That's true.
99% of people, all they care about is what people think. Yeah. That's the big difference. I think that's the big difference. Now that doesn't mean you just blasé and couldn't care. It's just that you back yourself because you've done the research and you can. What's the pattern? It's not like guessing. It's not gambling like at the casino. There's a pattern. Is there a pattern? Where does it come from? How long's it gone? How long's this thing in Perth with the granny flats been going on? what happened 5 years ago, like seeing the trends and patterns and joining the dots to make the play. Totally regardless of what everyone thinks.
Yeah.
Because you've done all the data and you've worked it out. That's a go.
You know, something just pops into my head. It was one of my favorite sayings. You've probably said to me 1,000 times. Never take advice from someone that hasn't done what you want to do. And that's always my biggest thing. If anyone would ever ask me that question, and like where you come with everything you just finished up there is why you're listening to 99% of people who haven't done what you want to do. You listen to the top one or you be that top one. You know what I mean? Like it's as simple as that. So
look,
I
at
love
my
that,
age,
man, because that literally culminated straight into that phrase that I always use.
It's a critical thing to remember, you know, and it's especially actually like in my own life, because sort of living a different lifestyle now and whatnot, you know, apart from speaking to someone like yourself and a very, very select hand, you know, you just can't tell anyone anything that you're thinking about like this because it just doesn't make sense and add up. So you got to be aware of that.
Yeah, 100%.
Otherwise you can cook your head. You got to, because, you know, when you're flying high and, you know, you're around others that are doing exactly the same thing, well, they've got far more chance of, but really just keeping it to yourself, working it out, getting clear on it like you do and think, hey, I've been thinking about this. You don't, you know, you're not broadcasting it. Just do it. You know, like I haven't been on social media. I'm not shit-canning social media. I'm just on a path of making myself as good as I can be.
Yeah.
Not to get a score from the world, to enjoy my life.
Yeah.
There's a big difference. To feel good about my life, to wake up each day or as many days as possible with a smile, not like, oh, fuck. I don't want that. So I'm the only person who can change that. But not to be at the end like, well, he did a good job. No, to feel better and have a better experience while I'm here, right, and learn some stuff and do 100%. Some more stuff.
Yep.
Regardless of what anyone, no optics, no external bullshit, like what makes me better? Yeah. What brings me peace? What brings me to life? Where can I add value? Just being a talking head on social media, now you've got a massive following, you're doing massive things, keep going. I'm not at this point. So I couldn't be asked, you know, doing stuff for the sake of doing stuff that I'm not that fucking interested in. Yeah, I could give a huge amount of advice to everyone for free for the rest of my life. What a horrible life.
What are you getting out of it?
I could give a huge amount of advice to everyone for free for the rest of my life. Well, I'm an imbecile. That's just, you got to, why would I do that?
Yeah.
Like, why would I give up I'm going to make content all day, every day for everyone for free to make the world a better place. You're an imbecile. That's going nowhere.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Right? So I'm just so done with bullshit. Keep it real.
Yep.
What makes me better? What makes me worse?
Yep.
And try to live accordingly. Where am I strong in business concepts and, you know, monetizing things, and live accordingly. Play accordingly. Understand the game. If I get triggered, I lose. If I'm in my head, I lose. Right? And I'm in my head because of a lifetime of stuff that culminates in how the neural pathways work. Yep. Right? But I can change that. Cool. So go about it. You know, I'm excited that at 48, like, I'm excited by things each day, you know, and I don't know how many people can say that. And that's not meant to be like, oh, I'm awesome, because I'm anything but awesome. We're all just doing our best. But I still, like with the foal at my joint, and like I've never had a 1 week old horse live outside my house.
That's mad.
Right? So how good's life at that point?
Yeah.
But if I had a 1 week old horse living outside my house and I was comparing it to X, Y, Z, A, B, C and where I thought I'd be, I want to kill myself, hypothetically. But if it's just that 1 week old horse and that's all there is, and there's mum and mum trusts me, and the little baby comes up and says, hi, how good's my life in that moment? But that's the only moment I can have anyway, because I can't be anywhere else. Yeah. So it's remembering that, but it's not that that's all there is, because I'll get bored of that. If I sat with that little baby horse forever, I'd be bored as shit today. It's great, but it's not all of it. It's a ratio of all things, and trying to stay in the middle emotionally and not sort of blow a valve. That would be my synopsis.
Yeah. No, I love it, mate. I love it. Man, that's everything. What I wanted to finish up with was my takeaways. I was jotting a few things I was going through as well, even through your whole journey, man. Mentor very early in the piece. So even like you said there with the other fella that had the big fruit market and all the rest of it, and I was at 21, you had old Bird at 19. Like, it kind of felt like you surround yourself with some pretty good people around that point in time, which was massive. Be wary of continuously chasing. So like, make sure you're still enjoying the journey. Not always be going for the destination, shooting for the, you know, enjoyment of the actual journey. Man, I love that. One of the other huge things, which was kind of reflecting on myself as well in my journey, was that humbling moments. supremely like fortuitous things. Like they're things we want in our lives, right? You want humbling moments because they keep the reality in check for when you actually do have massive success. Right. Yeah. If you haven't had those humbling moments, you're undoubtedly gonna fuck it. You're gonna blow it up. Whereas if you've already had those humbling moments, you've already got that check in the back of your mind of like, man, don't go too silly here because you've burnt yourself before. So I actually really love that, man. Actually, I've probably never really reflected on that properly until today when we were having that conversation. The fact that you kind of had that in your 30s and it probably at your detriment at the time that you had it. Me having those humbling moments in my 20s has benefited me massively in my 30s. So that was really cool, man, to actually reflect on and realize. Second last one, losses are only losses if you don't learn the lesson. And I think, man, that's something you taught me, really, that you got to look at, anything that's a loss, it's a lesson. It's just got a price tag on it. If you take the lesson from it, if you don't take the lesson and the learning, yes, it's a loss. Whatever it was, however much it cost. We've all had some pretty expensive, anyone that's done anything decent or pushed the limits, we've all had pretty expensive lessons and learnings in life, but it's all good. As long as you can 10X that somewhere else or take that learning and save yourself 10X of that somewhere else as well, then I think that's sweet. The final one for me, which I think is massive, which you went around, like you kind of touched on this so many different ways, is that you are a direct result of every action you've ever made in your life. So that you saying the fact of like from 1 second in, you've been in your life the whole time, wherever you are right now is a direct result of the actions you've taken to right now. So you have no one else to blame.
That's right.
No one else at all to blame. And it's also exciting because it means that there's no one else that actually has a direct impact. Well, to an extent, but like you are going to be the most directly impactful person in your own life. So once you fucking own that, you can do anything. That's right. You can do anything.
But here's the thing, just on that to wrap up, like marriage is great, but if it died 10 years ago and and it's game over and you're just hanging in there for 30 years, that's not great, right? Call it. Get out there and live. Yeah. Live. Like, not, well, we've got to keep up appearances here. No, you don't. That's the worst thing ever. If it's done, it's done. Like if the concept was like you get married for 10 years and you sign the contract, good, and you have a good 10 years, cool, let's go and do something else. If it's not working, like ownership. Don't live miserable when it's not working because that's what you're meant to do. That makes no sense.
That's fucking terrible.
That makes no sense. Like if I think your happiness is your responsibility, no one else's. Right, and that thing, you're the only person who's been there for all of it. So like number one job is to get happy in yourself, to be happy for others, because you can't be happy for others if you're miserable in yourself. I've tried, it doesn't work. Right, so you got to, and then I think, I think, like what can I do now? Not can't, like just it's that, and it's a sum of all the actions, like you said. So. Mate, I'm glad you like those takeaways.
I love it, mate. I love it. There's always the one-liners and the absolute belters in there, so I'll just write a couple down as we're going. But man, honestly, I've massively enjoyed the episode. There was plenty there that I'd never really unpacked with you or really heard or learnt about before, and we've been mates for quite a while now, worked together for a while. So, man, it was really cool to kind of unpack some of those things as well, man. I definitely took different things away from it too. So, mate, I just want to thank you once again for coming in, sharing your story. Mate, it was an epic. I don't know exactly the time. We had to reset the time halfway through. I think we're about 3 hours in, mate. Oh, wow. So I hope your energy's still good. You're looking sharp.
Chilled.
48,
3 hours.
38 and 48.
Powering. Look out.
Mate, you're an absolute gentleman. I appreciate you coming in. As always, mate, absolute pleasure to spend some time with you. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you took some great value out of it, if you think there's lessons, learnings, or anything, either you or yourself or someone in your circle could take some value out of it, make sure you send this episode on. You want to keep building your circle of influence of people that are around you, thinking, talking, acting like the top 1%. And that is the whole point of this podcast, is to keep leveling both yourself and the people around you if they're up for it and if they're game for it. If they're not, maybe it's time to be looking at rebuilding it, or who else can you bring into it from that perspective as well. If you're loving the episodes, if you're loving the podcast, make sure you leave us a 5-star review. And if you haven't hit the follow or subscribe button yet and you're loving the potty, please make sure you hit the follow or the subscribe button on your favorite listening platform. And until next week, guys, that's another Top 1% podcast.